In a world where voices are silenced, one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide Podcast with Luke Boner. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, hello and welcome. It's a little bit late today's podcast, but I have a doctor's certificate.
Yes.
And that doctor's certificate is audible and you can see it on Facebook.
Don't make me talk. I just had a tooth taken out and it wasn't much fun and I'm talking funny.
What did you do, Luke?
Well, Nikki made a pork knuckle. It was crackling and it crackled my tooth.
Oh.
And I just...
So tonight's episode will be delayed until tomorrow.
until I feel like it.
I wish you hadn't recorded that. I wasn't myself. I had to get your mum to pick me up from the dentist, you know, because I wasn't right.
Out of it. Yeah, as you should be. That's what happens when you get loaded up on painkillers.
So there's been an interesting reaction. Do you have to video everything?
Yes, I knew that you guys would love to see Luke in his prime, and I just thought it was funny that it was all started from a pork knuckle.
Well, it's actually something happened to the tooth a little while ago, and I chipped a little bit of it, and the dentist said, "Oh, I'm going to have to put a crown on that." And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it one day." And then I saw how much a crown cost, and my bloody private health insurance doesn't cover anywhere near of it. So I thought, "Oh, it's not hurting. I'll put up with it." And the dentist was right.
Dentists are always right.
Yeah. So it cracked and split open and it wasn't fun. So I was out of action yesterday. Hey, listen, before we get into today, it's St. Patrick's Day today, the day of recording. A big fuss all around the world, but Sydney seems to really embrace St. Patrick's Day. Have you found that?
Honestly, no. But I also don't go out. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be the right person to ask about it.
Well, the reason I ask is because on sunrise this morning, they, of course, went down to the rocks and they did a big thing with all the punters down there, everyone in green drinking Guinness, and they had the Split the G competition on sunrise.
Oh, yes, I can get amongst that.
So what is that again?
So it is a challenge where on the first sip of a Guinness, you have to get enough in to where the head perfectly sits in the middle of the G, and that's called splitting the
Guinness
G.
symbol.
Yes. So you have to do it in a glass Guinness cup. Can't be anything else because it has to have the Guinness symbol on
They're
it.
not cups, they're big glasses.
Oh, you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it has to have Guinness. Because when they were doing it, your mum goes, "Oh, they're splitting the G." I thought, how hip is your mum?
Yeah, I showed you my attempt at splitting the G.
That's right. Yeah, I was watching.
You know, who is St. Patrick?
St. Patrick is he drove all the snakes out of Ireland, amongst other things.
Oh, in the late 1300s AD, Patrick was born in the Britain town of Banner something something. Although he was raised by a Christian father, St. Patrick rejected religion, or he did until Irish pirates captured and enslaved him. Irish pirates. Now that is something I have never thought about before.
Irish pirates go, "Arr, to be sure, to be sure, to be sure."
Oh my God. So yeah, legend says that St. Patrick banished all the snakes from Ireland. However, this has been discredited as a myth.
No.
So why did people like him?
Like all the animals on Noah's Ark. You're not going to tell me unicorns are a myth, are you? And the Loch Ness Monster and the Yeti? Come on.
So it says that St. Patrick may have been the one to popularise the three-leaf shamrock in his pursuits to spread Christianity. It's rumoured he adopted the symbol to communicate ideals of the Holy Trinity. There you go.
Okay, so therefore we drink lots of Guinness on St. Patrick's Day.
How come St. Patrick's Day isn't like a big Christian celebration in like, I don't know.
Because it's an excuse to drink. Any excuse to drink, Kelsey. And it's improved the sale of Guinness around the world. It's a bit like Mother's Day and Father's Day. It's a manufactured holiday to sell chocolates, flowers, cards, and this one is to sell Guinness.
Well, you know, that's fun. I can get behind that.
Splitting the G. Can't believe it. Coming up, we're going to talk to David Littleproud, who is...
Wait, Luke, you've forgotten something. You want to skip past it because you don't want it to happen. But
I don't think
on
it's going to happen.
Thursday, at this point, around 5:15 a.m., we'll see, we will be live streaming on Facebook. I did the test over the weekend. It all looks like it will work relatively fine. And it'll just be Luke and I talking shit. And if you want to join along for the fun, you're more than welcome.
So people can ring in live.
They can, and you can obviously comment and do all those things. This will be our first live on Facebook. So, I mean, obviously, be patient with us. We'll get there in the end. Luke, I don't know about Luke, but, you know, he will survive it. You'll
Is it
come
going to
out
be on
fine
YouTube
the
as
other
well?
side. We'll post it on YouTube afterwards, but we're testing out Facebook Live this time around.
Okay, all right. 5:15 this Thursday. And for those who listen to Sydney's 2GB, it'll be right after I do the Boner Report with Phil O'Neill on Thursday. So there you go. Now, David Littleproud is no longer leader of the National Party, but he's still in the party room. He's still a member of the National Party. He's still in the Parliament, but he has a lot of interesting things to say. And I think we'll continue to chat with David because it's an interesting insight into the machinations of Canberra and his opinions on what's going on in this country and around the world. We'll talk to him. What is the truth behind the dirty petrol? We'll talk to Peter Khoury from the NRMA and our usual weekly favourite, Truckie Tuesday with Rod Hannifey.
We love the news.
Some of the stories making news around the place. Just before we jump into something that's going to come up in our conversation with David Littleproud a little bit later on, I just wanted to run this past you. In Adelaide, the Premier is Peter Malinauskas, who has got an election coming up. And so he's out on the hustings with voters. He went to Murray Bridge and he's doing what politicians do. And he's in a pub trying to get down with the real people. And he's pouring beers and handing them over.
Oh, God, what did the beers look like?
His beers looked all right. But here's the thing. Some sections of the media just focused right in and said he shouldn't have been pouring beers without an RSA certificate.
Oh,
I'm serious.
Get off it.
That is one of the headlines today. South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas has defended pouring pints for South Aussie pub goers without a responsible service of alcohol certificate. The Adelaide Advertiser writes, I enjoyed the opportunity to be amongst the South Australians on the weekend in a way that was perfect, I think. It's a reasonable way, and it's what countless of other politicians have done before us. Is that what the media has to focus on at the moment? Like, you know how politicians famously kiss babies during an election? Have they had a working with children certificate? I mean, where do you draw the line? It's ridiculous.
I don't know, but it must have been a slow news day because who cares? Oh my God, who cares? Surely there's something more interesting
like a war
to write
in
about.
Iran that's costing us an arm and a leg in petrol, cutting off our supplies of petrol and diesel, which is going to affect the whole country. We'll talk about that later on in the podcast. And something else we'll talk to David Littleproud about. At the recording of today's podcast, the fifth member of the Iranian women's soccer team withdrew her asylum claim and has left the country. 7 team members, including a player handler, were granted humanitarian visas by the Australian government last week. They seemed very, very keen to take up the offer, and they've changed their mind. And I'll talk to David about this very shortly, but you've got to ask yourself if they've been put under pressure by their government back home.
No, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but what a terrible position to be in.
Absolutely dreadful.
Terrible position.
I'm amazed that the Iranian government allowed the team to travel. When you think about it.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend I know anything about wartime strategy, so I don't know.
Anyway, you wouldn't see North Korea allowing a team to leave the country. And if people do want to defect...
Well, they don't let anyone leave the country,
I know,
though.
but imagine if someone defected, their families are threatened with execution. Their whole family, their children, their grandchildren, their grandparents. Anyway, very, very sad world in which we live. Now, this is something that you're going to have to explain to me. You know how we now have the social media ban on 16 and under here in Australia? Well, there are some porn sites like Pornhub, RedTube and YouPorn. They've gone dark, not because they're banned, but they're protesting the age verification rules. Is that right?
Yes. So this was it spurred a lot of commentary on young people's social media, lots of jokes being made, because I think it was on the same day that the war kind of started or around then, the porn sites went down. And so everyone was going, could this get any worse? What is going on? And essentially, these age verification laws, what they do is some sites are required for you to take a selfie, record a video to verify your identity. And of course, people don't want to do that on a porn site. They don't really want their identification out there. So lots of people are using, VPNs to kind of get around it. The sex workers themselves, they've been warning for years that these codes, which were a long time development between the eSafety Commissioner and industry, may force them off the internet and users onto less secure sites, because of course people will then start looking for this type of content in darker places of the internet because they don't want to have to show their face to log into a porn site. And also it kind of, it funnels traffic away from platforms that do have moderation safeguards in place and towards sites that profit from non-consensual and stolen porn as well. So it's a bit of a debacle in the porn industry at the moment in Australia.
Well, can I just add this? I was watching, I think it was SBS, and I don't remember the name of the show. It's a studio audience involvement show, kind of like Q&A, but I think it was on SBS, and it was focusing on the porn industry and Australia's involvement. And they were saying by far the number one subscriber porn platform at the moment is OnlyFans. And and I didn't get all the way through it, but I got the gist of it. And there were individuals, and there was one couple that are making a really big living on OnlyFans. And they were explaining that you go online and you can do things that aren't X-rated. There was one girl there who is a beautician. I think she specialises in eyelashes, and she's 23. Yeah. And when she finishes work for the day, she pulls the curtains back, puts the lights on, dresses up in skimpy bikinis and things, and she does sexy poses. She doesn't do hardcore porn. But there was a couple, a young, attractive couple in their early 20s, and they actually perform X-rated material. It's girl on guy. It's the couple having sex, but they do it for OnlyFans, and they're earning a fortune. Now, apparently the OnlyFans platform takes 20% of your earnings, so OnlyFans is like your pimp, I guess. I don't know, or your manager. But it's apparently taken Australians by storm, OnlyFans.
Yeah, this is not new news, Luke.
No.
OnlyFans is a big thing. And you can, like I've said to you before, Luke, you can sell feet pics on there if you want. Like there's no, you must sell porn. You can literally sell whatever you want on there as long as there is someone willing to buy it, then you're in the market.
Well, porn is the number one consumer of the OnlyFans material. Yeah, you're quite right.
Yes.
You can put a recipe on there. You can video yourself vacuuming, but it's the porn side of OnlyFans that's bringing in the big bucks. How accountable is that money? Do you have to pay tax on it?
Yeah. Australia's got pretty, strict laws around these things.
Yeah, I don't know if Shane Oliver will know about it. Maybe Scotty Phillips will.
No,
I don't know.
Maybe let's not ask Shane. I feel like he will not come back to the show.
We'll leave Shane out of that one. But you know what?
Scotty Phillips might know. Scotty Phillips, but he's not a tax man though. He's not he's an investment person. He's not a tax man.
But do you reckon we have listeners who, one, subscribe to OnlyFans, or two, perform on OnlyFans, can you get in touch with us? We will keep you completely anonymous. We'll change your name. Kelsey can disguise your voice.
Oh, who cares if you're loud and proud about it? Go for that too.
Could you contact us?
It's not a shameful thing.
Yeah. What is the email again? I'm still foggy from my...
Oh, God. lukebonaradioguy@gmail.com. I don't think we'd have many... Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there'd be many performers.
If there's anyone out there that knows anything about the OnlyFans world, can you contact us? We want to learn more about it. Well, it's just that it's in the...
Do we?
No, actually, you didn't, do we? How much does it cost? Do you pay per minute, per 15 seconds?
There's lots of different ways
what, you put money in the slot?
pay.
What do you do? Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Do you, it times you, does it?
Let's get an expert to... Because I don't know. I'm just making guesses at this point. I've never used the platform before.
Is it like Uber? Do you need an app?
Let's move
on. By the way, speaking of Uber, something very sad happened this week. Our local taxi company, Manly Cabs, which has been around since the horse and cart, they've gone. It's all over.
Is it sad?
They can't continue to operate. And there are other ride-sharing platforms saying, well, we'll look after the drivers and we'll take you on. But I wonder how many other taxis and taxi companies are doing it tough because of the ride-share competition that's now in the market. I find it a bit sad. You know, on Anzac Day, and this footage makes national news, there's the War Vets home at Khoury. And for years, the Manly Cabs donate their services and they pick up the War Vets from the Khoury War Vets home in their wheelchairs, whatever, and take them to the cenotaph in Martin Place and then deliver them home. They do it for free. They've done it every Anzac Day for as long as I can remember. So what's going to happen now?
Yeah. Well, hopefully somebody will pick that up. But, I mean, look, this is kind of the way of the world. We've known about Uber and rideshare platforms. They've been around for like a decade now.
More.
So, I mean, if you haven't been able to adapt to the new market, then unfortunately it's just kind of like it's the way the world works, I guess.
The taxi industry needed a big kick in the ass. It was getting complacent. They had really bad drivers. You still hear reports of drivers that won't pick you up at 3 a.m. because it's not going towards their way. Drivers that refuse to put the meters on. It still has problems, but Uber started illegally here in Australia and the government did nothing about it. And eventually they said, we can't beat them, let's join them. But they did operate illegally when they first started here in Australia, and the taxi industry I don't think has ever recovered.
Yeah. Just a quick one, Luke. Do you drool when you sleep?
I don't think so. And I used to...
Last night you would have.
Oh, yeah. Could have wringed out my pillow like a Wet-Ex. No, I don't know if I did, but I used to snore, and if I've had a few beers, I snore, but your mum's a snorer.
The reason why I bring this up is because there was a study that found drooling could actually indicate some bigger problems. And I put this in here because I drool, not all the time, but if I am in a deep sleep, if I have been out drinking, or if I'm napping during the day, but drooling in your sleep, and this was done by Dr. Landon Duker, a clinical assistant professor of otolaryngology. I have never seen that word before, Luke.
Otolaryngology.
Otolaryngology. I have never seen that before. Anyway, at Northwestern University in Chicago said that it could be a sign of a more serious sleep disorder or even a neurological condition such as Parkinson's. So if this is something that's happened recently, or if you're waking up every day and your pillow is covered in drool, maybe go get it checked out. But I feel like drooling is just kind of a normal part of sleep.
I guess it depends on who you're dreaming about, Kelsey.
Oh, God.
Are you one of those people that when you have a medical condition, you Google it and then panic?
Yes. But I know better now, but my first reaction is to Google and then I'll go see a doctor.
Jesus. Seriously. A study came out today where what are you? Gen Zs, millennials, and what's the one next to Gen Z?
Gen Alpha.
No, Gen Z and millennials are now going to AI for financial advice. A study has shown that young Australians are now going directly to AI to ask about tax information on financing a house or a flat, and they're going to. I mean, AI only knows what AI has been told, and the other advice they're going to is online influencers for financial advice.
Yeah, well, that's not a new thing. But this is the thing. If you know how to train AI properly, it can be a very useful tool. But most people just log on to ChatGPT, type in one question, and then take the first answer as, gospel. Whereas you can actually train AI to make sure that it double checks things, read different sources, go away, and you can train it so it, works for you and your needs specifically. But most people don't do that. So... Yeah, silly people.
We did an episode, a tech episode with Trevor Long some time ago, and he was explaining how you can manipulate AI. And he said, for example, you can dummy up your own Wikipedia page and AI and Google will believe it. So Kelsey Menzies, you write yourself a glowing wiki page, it'll go there first, and then if someone asks about it, that's the information that they'll hand on.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be very clever with this stuff.
You can manipulate it. Kelsey, we got an email from Kelvin.
Yes, Kelvin said, I was listening to your last episode talking about Rob Farmer, and then you guys mentioned John Travis. Just a bit of info for you guys. Robert Farmer and John Travis are actually in the same pod at Wellington Correctional Centre. Something I'm not proud of, Luke, but I was in the same pod as those two animals 8 years ago.
Wow.
Here's something that will get under your skin. John Travis is a pod sweeper and he earns $100 per week through the jail. Taxpayers are paying the animal after what he did. How wrong is that?
It doesn't seem right, does it? We were talking to Adam Shand about those two people. And next time we talk to Adam, we will probably talk about Anita Cobby because we talked about Gerard Baden Clay. And we talked about Lauren Huxley, and Lauren Huxley is where the conversation started. So we'll get Adam back on in a couple of weeks, Kels, and we'll do a follow-up. But yeah, is it right that people who are responsible for these terrible, terrible, heinous crimes are able to earn a living while, even if it is just sweeping up floors in the jail?
I don't know. It's a tricky one. I don't know. All right, Luke, we got a video to watch. It was sent to us by Josh, and this was posted by Michael Gray Griffith on Facebook. So let's have a watch of this.
One thing to come to St. Clair, or you're going to be in the trouble.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
Of course. Is this a legitimate business?
Bro, get out.
Hey,
get out.
That's assault because this is my
That's
property.
Hey. She just broke the $800 glasses.
How many times we come here?
You broke my glasses.
I don't care whatever you're going to say.
You broke my glasses.
I don't care. I'm not going to speak to anyone.
Are you seeing this?
Out of here.
This is the NDIS.
So essentially, Luke, these are two young blokes and they are, I guess, investigating fraudulent NDIS businesses. What they did is they went to Western Sydney, a Western Sydney NDIS provider operating out of the exact same address as a previous NDIS business the Australian government shut down for fraud 4 months ago. And they were using the exact same accountant and the exact same phone numbers. Of course, the people investigating this, they were kind of physically assaulted, verbally assaulted. Wow. At one point, one of these NDIS providers called them the R word, which is not good. So it's just a bit of an insight into kind of what these NDIS providers are doing to kind of skirt the system.
I don't know what the R word is.
RETARD.
Oh, dear. I think I saw these fellows. If it wasn't them, it's another group trying to expose the NDIS rorting. And what they did was they hired a cleaning company to come and clean a flat through the NDIS. And it was their flat. And because of privacy laws, they weren't allowed to leave cameras inside the flat. But what they did was a couple turned up, a man and a woman, with no cleaning gear. Not a bucket, not a broom, not a mop, not a can of Ajax within Khoury, no Windex, not even a Wettex, not even a scourer. And they said, look, we'll be back on Wednesday. Thank you very much. NDIS, yes. And So then they went outside and hid in the car and timed them. They were 25 minutes. They stopped the clock, and it was all done in real time. And they left. This couple left without a broom, without a bucket, without a bottle of Windex, nothing, no clean tools. They went inside, and nothing had been done. But in the waste paper bin in the toilet were tissues. The guy's own tissues. So maybe they've done a bit of a wipe here and a wipe here with a tissue.
Oh God!
Well, then on the YouTube video, the invoice comes in, and they charged $200 and something, 2 hours, and they were there 25 minutes.
So bad.
So I don't know what the part 2 to that story is, but I watched that on YouTube the other night. Unbelievable. And you got to ask yourself, how often does that go on?
Oh, very often. All right, Luke, we got another email and I guess a voice message from Armani.
I bet he's dressed well.
Oh, I don't know. He said, "G'day, Luke. I have written a song for truckies and bus drivers a little while ago. I was wondering if you can take a look at the lines and see if it can be made into a catchy tune." So this is the raw version of his song.
Okay.
I have since asked Armani to send me the lyrics, and then I can get AI to maybe turn it into a tune.
I'd love you to.
But this is the raw version of it, Luke. So just, listen with a grain of salt, I guess.
Okay.
It's not the finished product.
Okay,
but let's
it's
see
a
what you
demo.
think. It's a demo.
G'day, do you mind? I know you might be a little late. How's it going in that land? Did the kids drive you insane? I know you might be a little late, but there's no reason to give me hate. Keep it nice, keep it steady and straight. I know you might be a little late, your boss will probably yell out, "Late again, man." He says it out loud. We are Sydney more, we're desperate, cause we don't wanna be late. The boss is a cunt, and I get it, mate. But here's what I ask from you. Let's not become tonight's 6 news. A good looking man.
Okay, I've had no. Kelsey, if this was the voice, my chair hasn't turned. Okay? Now, we'll get the lyrics. You're going to have to clean that up a little bit. It's not floating my boat, Kels. Grain of salt and all.
I think let's put it through AI and let's see if it can.
Please, we've got to have listeners with more talent than that, haven't we?
The lyrics are all right.
I couldn't really understand it except for the expletive.
Yes. So let me put it through AI. I'll play it for you in the next episode, and we'll let the truckies decide, right? Because this is a song for truckies. Well, we'll let the truckies decide.
Okay. Well, are we going to play it live on Thursday or wait for Rod?
Oh.
See how you go.
Maybe both. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. All right, Luke, I've got one more here for you, and this is actually this is actually a submission from producer Tom. We got access to some of the night shift archive audio recently, and Tom said, "I've got to play this particular one for you."
Oh, no.
So are you ready for this?
Oh, no. I have no idea. What's he found? Now, on Friday during the Man Cave, we're going to start a new segment. I don't know how it's going to go, Thomas. I came up with the idea just randomly last Friday. Because remember, Hey Hey, it's Saturday, and they had that segment, Red Faces. And I thought we need to inject a bit of fun into the Man Cave. And I thought, why don't we have a segment called What Do You Do? Now, it's got to be something we can hear. If it's mime, if it's sign language, if look, it's radio. Work with me, folks. Work with me. Dancing, possibly not, but tap dancing, yes.
Because we can hear it.
We can hear that. We can imagine it. But it's the segment's called What Do You Do? And we're going to come up with some fantastic prizes. Michael Hope from Hope Estate is going to donate something, some wine or some beer or something. I'll find some prizes.
Do you remember this at all?
Vaguely, yeah. Just to give you a little hint as to what you're up against, I think.
It's tough competition.
It is going to be tough. James is online. G'day, James.
G'day, brother.
How are you?
Very well, sir. How are you?
I'm very good. James, tell us a bit about yourself. That's what they say on these shows. James, tell us a bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Tasmania.
Good on you. Born and bred there?
Born and bred, sir.
Okay. And what do you do for a living, James?
I play harmonica.
Fantastic. How long have you been playing the harmonica, James?
Since I stopped breaking guitars, sir.
This is what...
Since I stopped breaking guitars and people stopped stealing guitars from me.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'll give you a riff, brother.
Okay, now, folks, this is James from Tasmania in Hobart in Tasmania.
Hobart Town, brother.
Hobart Town. This is what you're up against for What Do You Do on Friday during the Man Cave. James.
This is what we do in the man cave, brother.
Okay.
With a couple of beers and a coffee too.
Thanks.
He's pretty good.
He's not bad. Okay, there we go.
There's that, brother. There you are.
Now, I want you to call back on Friday during the Man Cave. Have you got someone else in the Man Cave that can maybe accompany you on the guitar or you can play some blues for us?
Holy crap, I'm not learnt to be John Lennon, but I've got a guitar in my knapsack.
Yeah. Can you play the guitar and the harmonica at the same time?
I'm trying, brother.
Like Bob Dylan.
Exactly like Bob Dylan, who I love.
Yeah.
He's so drunk.
He's had a few Jack Daniels, I think. He's just fallen over, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I could have as well.
After all that breath, James has just fallen over.
There was a lot of it in him.
We actually heard him hit the ground. It was a big breath. It was a great effort. So he's gone. Do we need to call paramedics? Can you check? Are you all right?
I might just check.
Can you ring him back? Can you? Our first contestant for What Do You Do has passed out.
It's a staggering performance.
He's passed out.
Knock us out until you knock yourself out.
What do you make of that?
I remember it now. Oh, God. I think he'd had a few JDs.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you got to give him points for trying, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he was pretty bloody good at the harmonica.
He was all right. I wondered, did he end up bringing us back?
I don't
know. I wonder if Thomas can...
I hope he was okay.
I hope he was all right too. But anyway, so you want to start a segment called What Do You Do? And people can audition by using the phone line, 0291289311. Give us 30 seconds of an impression of somebody, singing, playing the harmonica, the triangle, not the recorder. Not the recorder. I couldn't cope with three blind mice. But anything else, give us 30 seconds on our audition hotline, 0291289311, and we'll play it during the Man Cave. How's that sound? Coming up, the truth behind dirty petrol and Australia's petrol crisis with Peter Khoury from the NRMA. That's next. Well, as we all know by now, the Australian government has made a major announcement about our fuel supply, or the short-term solution to our very real problem, our fuel supply. It's going to release a stockpile of previously restricted high sulfur fuel. Now, everybody's referring to this as dirty fuel. So does it deserve that label? Let's look into it. Now, this easing of Australia's fuel standard is going to release an additional 100 million litres of fuel per month, and that equates to about 2 days of extra supply, and that'll be in place for the next 60 days. Now, while the additional fuel supply will be of lower quality, the NRMA is urging motorists, hey, listen, don't worry about filling up with the so-called dirty fuel. Apparently, it's not really dirty fuel, and it's fuel that we used to use not so long ago. Peter Khoury is the NRMA spokesperson. He's the expert on all of this. He's with me now. G'day, Pete.
G'day.
Well, Pete, let's go through this. What exactly has happened? We know about the war in Iran and the Hormuz Strait, and the United States says it's working on gaining back control of that strait so world supplies of not just fuel but everything else can get through. But what has the government decided to do? Can you explain it for us?
Yeah, so there are two things happening at the same time. One is the government announced that they're going to release about 100 million litres of fuel out of our strategic reserve, mostly diesel, which we meant to stockpile in the event that the tankers don't arrive. And that historically is meant to be for like the Army, transport services, emergency services, if we find ourselves in a situation where we're completely shut off and there's no more oil or fuel coming into the country. That's never happened before. That's what that reserve is for. We have about 30 days of diesel and 30 days of unleaded, and they're releasing some of that, about 20% of it. The priority is the diesel, and it's going to go into regional communities so farmers and transport and trucking companies can access it. The other thing that they've done is they've lapsed or relaxed the fuel quality standards that were introduced a year ago. And so that's a completely separate issue, and it only applies to unleaded fuel. Australia historically was selling fuel that had a lot more sulphur in it that, say, the developed world was selling. Sulphur is just a natural part of crude oil, but it's not good for the environment. And with the new cars coming online, the Euro 6 standard vehicles, many of them coming out of Europe, coming online that are more fuel-efficient vehicles, they need the better quality fuel to perform to their maximum ability. So Australia basically introduced a rule that said we're going to start, in the refining process, we're going to extract most of the sulphur out of our oil, out of our fuel, to make it cleaner, in brackets. By reversing that policy, it just means that the fuel that we were buying up until a year ago, some of it will be back on the market. People shouldn't worry about it hurting their cars. It's the fuel we've been using for 100 years. It's just going to have more sulphur in it than it has had for the last 12 months. And it's only a short-term measure, so they're only going to do it for 2 months.
Now, when I open the petrol cap of my car, it says 98 RON. Now, will cars that take 98 or people that prefer to put 98 in their cars, is this so-called high sulphur dirty fuel going to be in the 98?
Yeah, well, yes, because it's always been in the 98. So most of the sulphur, the heaviest amount of sulphur is in 91. There's about 100, well, there was 100 million parts per million, so 150, and it's been reduced down to 10. So they've extracted almost all of that sulphur, which is in line with the standards overseas. There was less sulphur in 95 and 98. It was around 50, and it's been, for the last 12 months, it too has been extracted down to 10. But prior to 12 months ago, if you were putting 98 in your car, it's the same 98 you were putting 13 months ago. So your car will continue to function the way it was 13 months ago. You won't notice the difference. It's the same fuel, except the standards got improved. There's less sulphur in the last 12 months. We're just going back for a short period to what it was like 13 months ago.
Okay, so we changed our standards not because the higher sulphate was hurting cars, but it was hurting the environment. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost. So definitely it's better for the environment to have less sulphur in your fuel, but also the lower sulphur levels ensure that if you buy a new fuel-efficient high-performance vehicle from Europe and some of the manufacturers from Asia, you're not going to get the performance levels with the highest sulphur. And so those manufacturers were just sending their best cars to other countries because they're not going to sell them here because you can't get the real benefits of the fuel efficiency. By ensuring our fuel standards are the same as theirs, it just means we've got more options when it comes to buying new fuel-efficient vehicles that meet the Euro 6 standards. Up until the introduction of these new rules, our fuel quality was on par with the developing world, and these rules brought them on par with the developed world. The issue is to extract that sulfur in the refining process, it takes longer and it's more expensive. So by laxing the laws or the standards, the government has just ensured that our refineries can produce fuel at a far greater rate and get it out into the community. It is a little bit more expensive, but you don't really notice it at the bowser because the process takes longer. And it only applies to petrol. We did this with diesel back in 2009. So our diesel standards have always been, since 2009, have been at that level. So it doesn't affect diesel.
Okay, let's get to diesel. This country runs off diesel. I mean, for those people who drive their motor cars and rely on them for work, yes, there's a lot of them. And not everyone has access to public transport, which is a shame. However, truckies rely on diesel. Farmers, there aren't electric trucks running around that work efficiently, and there aren't electric ploughers and headers and electric farm equipment that farmers need to produce. And I know our fishing industry is under threat because those boats that bring seafood to our shores and to our markets, they run off diesel. Should the government, do you think, Peter, be concentrating more on diesel?
Yeah, well, and that's what they're doing. So they've released 100 million barrels a month for 2 months out of our reserve, and most of that is diesel, and most of that is going to those very industries that you just mentioned. So that's the intent there, in the hope that it will carry us over until this conflict ends. I mean, at the end of the day, all of these measures that we've just talked about are stopgap measures.
Yep.
They are not permanent solutions. Until the war ends in Iran and production levels go back to what they were and the supply chain is no longer interrupted, we are going to continue to have price issues. And as long as people keep stockpiling and panic buying, particularly diesel, we're going to have supply issues. It's really important that we get our diesel out to those regional communities, because if the farmers can't farm, we can't eat.
I know. And if the trucks can't run, the food doesn't get to our supermarkets.
Correct. Our economy runs on diesel, as you said. Mining, manufacturing, transport, agriculture, it's all run on diesel. We carry some stuff on heavy rail, but not a lot. And even when you do carry stuff on heavy rail, you then have to take it from port to
from the port to the DC.
So,
yeah, I know.
Yeah. So you need the trucks. Yeah.
The rail doesn't run to every Coles and Woolies and Aldi, and IGA.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And there isn't a heavy rail, as far as I remember, going to our fish markets. No, you're 100% right, Peter Khoury. Peter, can I just ask you, the NRMA, and your opinion on this? This war in Iran and the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has shown us how vulnerable we are, and the rest of the world. Would it be in the government's best interest and Australia's best interest to give some incentive to oil companies to do some exploratory drilling here in Australia so we can be self-sufficient?
So Australia does produce some oil. The oil that Australia tends to produce is more heavy oil, so it's more used for industrial purposes. I'm not an oil man. I'm not an expert in drilling and exploration. I know it's very expensive. We do provide ourselves with, there is some domestically produced oil, but the reality is it is cheaper, significantly less expensive to basically import our oil. We used to have 8 refineries, so we could import crude oil, or we could drill our own crude oil and refine our own oil into fuel and use it domestically. We now have 2. And the reason for that is because the scale of operation is so much cheaper for the oil companies to basically buy the refined fuel from Asia and bring it here. It's something like a scale of 3 to 1. So it's 3 times more expensive for them to keep our 2 refineries open here in Australia than it is for them to import refined fuel from Asia, diesel and petrol. Now that comes with a strategic risk.
Yeah.
And the previous Morrison government invested hundreds of millions of dollars in upgrading those 2 remaining refineries to keep them operational, because otherwise, well, first of all, they were very old, and second of all, we're keeping them open basically for strategic purposes, as we've seen in the last week.
Now, the International Energy Agency, the IEA, of which we're a member, recommends 90 days of reserves. Why is it that Australia only has 30 to 35 days?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we've got about a month's worth of diesel and a month's worth of petrol, and you're absolutely right. The recommended period is 90 days. We only have 30 days. Again, To increase storage capacity, which is what we would need, it would cost tens of billions of dollars. We've never tapped into that reserve before because at no time in our history have the tankers ever stopped coming. And to be honest, the only reason we're releasing this reserve is to cover the gaps which were brought about by the increase in demand. You know, at some areas, people were buying diesel at 4 times the rate that they normally would. So had we been buying our diesel at the normal rate, we would not have experienced the level of gaps that we currently have because we know that the tankers are still arriving as they were before the war. So the question is this: do we spend tens of billions of dollars on storage capacity to triple the amount of reserve that we currently have, or do governments put that money into other things? Now, we've seen over the last 2 weeks the benefit of having increased capacity, but again, I think it's important people understand that's not for you and I to access. That's actually in the event of, well, what it's meant to be for is in the event that those tankers don't arrive, the military and trucking companies and the emergency services have diesel, mainly diesel.
Peter, I've got to ask you this. It came to my attention on Friday that New Zealand have come up with an idea. They've announced they're considering invoking emergency powers, which actually dates back to the late 70s. That could limit how often motorists are allowed to drive if this global fuel supply tightens. The war in the Middle East has obviously sent a shockwave through global markets, and New Zealand hasn't been left out. Last week, the Finance Minister, Nicola Willis, revealed the government has reviewed legislation, which, by the way, was introduced after the Iranian Revolution. When was that? 1979, when the global oil markets... The global markets were severely disrupted. Under those laws, Peter Khoury, car owners had to nominate 1 day per week when they wouldn't use their vehicle, and they faced hefty fines if they were caught driving. What do you make of this?
Well, it's the motorist version of the COVID lockdown, isn't it?
Isn't it?
So,
or Peter, when we're in drought, the odds and evens watering system.
Correct. Look, we don't believe we are there yet. We acknowledge that supply chains have been affected by the war, and that's been exacerbated by panic buying. If you were to restrict movement, you're restricting economic growth. It would almost certainly guarantee a recession. So that is the effects of stopping people from being able to drive. It means that parents can't take their kids to school. They can't do the grocery shopping. If they're not doing the grocery shopping, they're not spending money. So you've just pulled a lot of investment out of the domestic economy. And so it will have a profound effect right across the community and the economy. And I just don't think we're there yet because, as I said, something like 18 tankers of oil have already arrived in Australia this week and another 33 are on their way, which is on par with what we would normally receive. So the oil is coming, the fuel is coming. If we just go back to our pre-conflict buying habits, if we stop stockpiling fuel, especially diesel, both at the terminal, if you're a wholesaler, if you're doing that, or if you're the majors and you're holding off on distribution to target your areas where you can make the most money, or if it's you and I going to Bunnings, buying a jerry can, filling it with diesel at $2.50 a litre and putting it in the garage. If we stop doing all of that, it will provide more relief to the supply chain and it will help us get that fuel out to the areas where we need it. I think it would be a pretty dramatic measure to stop people's movements. It will have a profound effect on the economy, on social connection. We've got to think about that as well. And I just don't think we're there yet.
Last question for you, Pete, because you are being inundated, and I appreciate that. Everyone driving an EV, or at least a hybrid, at the moment is rubbing their hands together, doing high fives and saying, told you so. And I get that. But people who drive EVs, depending on what public charger you go to, you do pay something, but nowhere near the price of petrol. People who drive EVs aren't contributing to the fuel excise, which is supposed to go back to our roads. Do you think that there should be some kind of levy, which is really another word for a tax, aimed at EV people who are still using the roads, and those electric vehicles are heavy? They cause the same amount of damage to the roads, and they're using the roads. Do you think there should be some kind of levy? I don't know. You take a check of someone's rego when they get their rego done every year, and then they're given a a levy on how many kilometres they've done on top of their rego to make up for the fact that they're not contributing and paying the fuel excise, which, by the way, is 51 cents in the dollar?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I think this is something that the NRMA has been looking at for quite some time. And we've been saying that we need to reform the way we tax motorists for years. And it's not just because of EVs. I mean, the reality is, I'm not sure how many people know this, but you pay the excise at the pump. And then that is collected at the service station, and then the money is passed on to the government. The problem you've got with that system is it's antiquated because there are more EVs coming on the road and they're not paying the tax. But more importantly, there are more fuel-efficient vehicles coming on the market. And so if you can afford to upgrade your vehicle every 2 or 3 years, the likelihood is you're going to have a car that is far more fuel-efficient than the one you were driving 3 years ago. So what that means is the people who are most exposed to the tax are the ones who can afford it the least. It's families in the outer suburbs that don't have the access to public transport that they need. They either regional or remote communities that drive longer distances or drive heavier vehicles because they have to because they're on property. So by definition, they are exposed to that tax more than everybody else. So we absolutely need to reform how we tax motorists. A road user charge system where you pay per kilometre is ultimately going to be where we end up. We just need government to have enough courage to begin the conversation with Australians, because historically Australians don't like those two words, tax reform. So yes, EV owners would get caught up in that, but that would mean that they are paying the same tax at the same rate as everybody else. It would be a like-for-like swap. It means that we're no longer collecting the excise, because in time that revenue is going to fall as more and more Australians buy fuel-efficient vehicles or EVs or plug-in hybrids. So the amount of fuel we buy over time will fall, so will the tax. So it's an antiquated system. It needs to change, and the sooner the better.
Maybe user pays. Everyone has to have their car registered once a year. So when you get your car registered, you show how many kilometres you've done over 12 months, and that's calculated and added onto your rego bill. I don't know, but
we would hardly be Christopher Columbus here. It's not something that Australia has to invent. There are various models that we could adopt, and the adoption could be simple as at the service level, when you're getting your car service, you hand over your odometer. And that's when you pay the tax based on the kilometres you drive, or you can do it quarterly, or there's any number of methods that we can adopt to record how far you've driven and then work out how much your tax is. As long as it's like for like we don't want people paying any more tax than they already are, because they're paying plenty of tax as it is, but it can be done, and therefore you could apply it to EVs, plug-in hybrid, or your 20-year-old Holden.
Yeah, I mean, people in regional areas don't have access to public transport that people in the cities have.
Correct.
So that would definitely not benefit them. It would seem unfair. And if you do user pays, I mean, let's just face it, Peter Khoury, the fuel excise collects about $18 billion a year, and then you've got GST as well. It would have to be fair, so people in regional Australia weren't put at a disadvantage.
Well, they're already put at a disadvantage because they are, by definition, driving longer distances and they're driving bigger vehicles. So their fuel consumption is going to be higher than, say, mine, because I live, not far from the city, and I've got access to public transport and I'm not driving anywhere near the distances they are. So the way the current model works means that they're already overly exposed. The new model will just mean that at the very least they're paying user pays model based on the kilometres they're driving, and then not getting punished for the fact that they also have less fuel efficient vehicles.
Yeah, and do you punish someone that drives a V8 as opposed to someone who drives a 4-cylinder? I mean, I don't know how you calculate it. I really don't know.
There you go.
Yeah, I know. But people who drive V8s and use more petrol are paying more excise, aren't they?
Correct.
Yeah. Peter Khoury, there's always something to talk about. Thank you so much. You've shed a lot of light on all of this, because there's a hell of a lot of confusion out there.
Thanks for having me on your program.
Peter Khoury from the NRMA.
My day got the bluesy rhythm, but it's swinging my way. Oh, I got the look on a blues, but they're the kind that chase away.
Well, it's been a little while since we've spoken to David Littleproud, a regular contributor to the Bonafide podcast. Last time we spoke, he was leader of the Nationals, but He ain't no longer, but he's a loyal party man. He hasn't created a by-election. He still believes he has a lot to offer, and I think so too. And whether we agree or disagree, it's always interesting to have an incredible insight into what's making this country tick from David's point of view, and he's back on the phone now for another bash. David Littleproud, Member of Parliament, the Honourable David Littleproud. G'day and welcome back. How do you feel?
I feel really good, mate. I haven't had a regret, which says that it was the right decision. I woke up on that morning without any anxiety or thinking, have I done the right thing? And subsequent to that, I haven't had any thought of that at all. And that says to me that I made the right decision. I made it at the right time on my own volition. And I'm really happy by it. And I'm enthused. And, I'm getting to go back. And one of the things that we get to do is see my family.
Yeah.
But secondly, I'm also going to go and get to see my electorate. I've been in politics 10 years. And nearly all bar 18 months of that, I've been on the front bench. So, the people of Maranoa have been pretty forgiving, but it's time to give a bit back to them as well. And I'm really excited about that, to get out, because to me, that's the real Australia, outback Queensland. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I feel really good, enthused and renewed. And I needed that because I was buggered. I had nothing left in the tank. And you can't, I could have stayed and, you take the paycheck and you take the title, but I came to serve the people of Maranoa and regional Australia, and if I had stuck on just for that, then I'd be holding them back. And, I can't do that. I got to go and get my energy back. And I had a pretty tough 9 months with the circumstances that were thrown at us. So it was time to understand that takes a toll. And if you're not honest with yourself, then you're not doing the job properly. So I'm really happy with the world, and obviously my wife is too, but it's good and it's an exciting time. And, I'm going to get in 110% behind Angus and Matt now. I should be judged not just to what I did as leader, but also how I handle myself post it. And that's not throwing my toys out of the cot. And that's about staying, being part of a team, being part of the collective and working hard so that we get rid of Anthony Albanese at the next election. That's what I signed up for, and that's what I'm going to continue to sign up to do.
Well, I've got to say this. When Susan Lee's position as leader was ended, and she said, look, I'll get out. I think you need clear air as a new leader and a party that now will go on a different direction. I thought, well, it's going to create a by-election, which are expensive things to have. However, I think she did the right thing because unlike Malcolm Turnbull, you don't want a pest lying around white-anting you from underneath. Not that I'm suggesting that Susan Lee would do that, but you're staying in the parliament because you believe you have a lot to offer, and I think you do too. And can I just say, and we'll get back to Matt Canavan if we have time at the end of our chat, because, God, there's some important stuff we need to talk about. But I think it's great that you're still in the party, and it shows that you still believe you have a lot to offer and you do love your electorate and you do care about regional Australia, which is what I wanted to talk to you about right now. The future of our farming sector is under enormous threat. God, if it's not floods or drought or fire, now we have farmers claiming now we have Chris Bowen, who's been accused of falling asleep at the wheel. Now, the whole world knew that the conflict with Iran was imminent, and it had been for quite some time. And of course, that meant a shock to the world's oil supply. The IEA, of which Australia is a member, has always recommended to members you have at least 90 days worth of fuel stored. Why have we only had 30 to 35? And you've got farmers now saying, well, not only can't we get diesel for our tractors and our headers and our harvesters, but we're worried that fruit and crops won't be harvested, and the few that are going to be so expensive. This is a massive cluster. Well, you know what I'm about to say.
Yeah, and you're being generous. So the IAE made a recommendation in 2022 that we should have 90 days of fuel storage. That would insulate us against the impacts of something like a war in the Middle East. And that's what started, and that construction of that storage capacity started, and then we got punted. Labor have continued to build that, but probably not at the rate they should have. And what was happening in the interim, there there was a deal that we would store much of our 90 days with the US until we could build our storage capacity up to that 90 days. And that's what invariably has been happening. And what we've seen is that it hasn't been continued to build quick enough. And so that means that when you get to this situation, now Bowen tells us we've got about 32 days of storage. If he's right, and this is the problem, needing to be truthful, but if he is right, then the supply chains, there's opportunity for us to probably get through it. But what the problem is there's two markets. And what happens is there's four big fuel companies in this country. They control more than 80% of fuel. And so what they're doing is for the smaller wholesale market, so the smaller guys who look after regional rural Australia, what they've done is they've withheld their supply. So they've withheld their supply for a couple of reasons. One, they keep on telling us, oh, no, there's plenty of supply, it's going to be okay. But what they're doing is they're hedging against a price shock. So what happens is they pay a spot price when the fuel hits the shore here in Australia. But what they do with the contracts of these secondary markets, the secondary markets wholesalers, they pay the big four on the monthly average of the month before of what the price is. They don't pay a spot price. They have contracts that they've actually agreed to where they just pay the average price of the previous month is what they pay. So what the big four fuel companies are saying is, well, we've got to worry because if you have a big price shock, so the bombs start flying, the price goes up, you beauty, they're making money. What they're worried about is Trump stops dropping bombs, the price collapses, and then they get caught paying out, 10, 20, and we're seeing 40 cent difference. They lose big money. So these big fuel companies have constrained the amount of supply they're putting out because what they're trying to do is to hedge against that price shock so that they don't have as big a losses when the price comes down and they can maximise their profits when it's going up. The other thing of being someone as cynical as me, I tend to suspect also is by constraining supply, what does that do? That pushes price up anyway. So I don't think these big fuel companies have acted in good faith, and I think the government has been asleep at the wheel in holding them to account. In making sure that supply gets there. Because I've got towns, I had Texas, 800 people, 900 people live in Texas. They ran out of fuel last week. Wollongara on the highway to Armidale, between Stanthorpe and Armidale, it ran out of fuel. A little store down the road from me, Leeburn store, it ran out of fuel the other day. But there are farmers that just can't get the fuel out of their distributors. And just for the icing on the cake, what I'm now hearing is these big four fuel companies, they're coming out into some of these regional areas where there's big agriculture, and they're sending their fuel reps to say, well, why don't you sign up with us? So they're trying to take away the customer of the smaller wholesale. These people are unconscionable. And, this is where I'm trying to get some more information on this, and the ACCC should get themselves involved, because if they are constraining supply, one, to keep price up, two to also then take market advantage of new markets, taking out other their competitors' markets, then we've got a real problem. So this is why I think there needs to be a government that's alive to this. Bowen didn't think about it because all they did was prioritise all the service stations in the cities. The big four just go, we'll prioritise all our supply into the capital markets. We get the spot price, we're okay. These contractual constraints that they've put in place on these other wholesalers is where they are hedging against future losses, and we're paying the price for it, particularly out here in the bush.
You've heard Rod bang on about the powers of Nature B.
We've discussed how hard it is to get decent meals on the road. I had a power shake for breakfast on Friday, mate.
What did you think?
No, they're very good.
And now there's the Power B meal replacement shakes. It's to make getting good nutrition even easier. Under $6 a meal. Yeah, Rod and I might be the power couple on the highway, but for your health, it's got to be Power Pollen and the Power B shake. And Nature B's also knocked off 10% for you legends out there watching this. All you have to do, use the code Luke10 at checkout. Jump onto natureb.com, always use in conjunction with a good diet and regular exercise. David, let's talk about this so-called dirty fuel, which I don't know if it's a fair name. It's high sulfur fuel, and it's fuel that we were using in our cars as late as December last year. But the environmental issues have changed, and now it needs further refinement, less sulphur. He said that he's going to release this dirty fuel. And we find out today that the paperwork hasn't been done and it could be a two-week wait.
Yeah, I mean, this guy has buggered your energy bill and now he's coming after fuel. Chris Bowen will go down as one of the most incompetent ministers in Australian history, and unfortunately he's going to Prime Minister that's going to match it, because ultimately the buck stops with the Prime Minister. But just don't get too excited about what he's talking about there and how much he's releasing. That equates to about a full day's supply. So that's not a huge amount. So with all the fanfare that he was talking about, it's not even going to touch the sides. And so this is why, you've got to make sure that we continue to get supply. Albanese has one job between now and when this war stops, and that's about supply of fuel. So most of our fuel goes to Singapore, South Korea, or Malaysia, where it's refined. So they're the big refining centres for us. About 70 to 75% of our fuel comes from there, refined. And so what we need to make sure is if the Straits of Hormuz is blocked, then there is a problem for that crude oil to get to those three countries for it to be refined. So we've got to make sure that that those supply chains are up. Now, if you see some of the commentary from some of the fuel companies, boats are starting to get through again. They were down to about 5 to 10% at one point of the ships were getting through. So that's why Trump's saying everyone should be there with a boat and a gun on it to say to Iran, we need that oil to get through. So this is where our own oil refinement's important. We've lost them. And basically we've lost them because we're uncompetitive. We're uncompetitive because your energy bill's too high. I mean, you're already subsidising about $7 billion to keep Tomago going, to keep Mount Isa, Port Pirie, Whyalla, because they can't afford their energy bills. So how can you process oil if your energy bill's too high? And so this is where Bowen, you just can't keep handing out subsidies. At some point, you've got to have the courage to fix the problem, and the problem is high energy costs.
Yeah, because last time I looked, I don't know many farms that have electric headers and harvesters and plows. And the fuel shortage or the price of fuel, yes, it's a massive inconvenience to everyday commuters in cities, and it might encourage people to carpool. There's talk of New Zealand saying, well, there's going to be a day or 2 days a week where you nominate it, you can't drive your car. During COVID, a lot of the workforce learnt to work from home, but you can't deliver, because we talk to Rod Hannifey on Truckie Tuesday every week, and he has just left to go to Perth and back. You can't deliver to the shopping centres, you can't deliver to the supermarkets via Zoom. It takes a truck using diesel to keep Australia on the go, doesn't it?
Oh, it's your trucks, it's your headers, your tractors. The reality is...
And what about the mining? What about the mining?
Well, that's before you get to mining. That's before you start digging holes to pay the bills. I mean, this is where it was all superficial to Albanese and Bowen. All superficial to go, well, look, we'll be complicit with these big fuel companies. We'll make sure the fuel gets through to the retailers. So everyone thinks it's okay in the cities. But what they haven't understood is that you don't keep an economy going unless you keep industry going. And to keep industry going, you need diesel. You need the truckies to be able to go and pick it up, even the diesel trains to go and pick it up and put it on a train and to move it across the country. And you need tractors and headers going to make sure that you're able to get the food out of the paddock when you need it. You just can't sit there and wait till we're ready. If a crop is ready, it's ready. You can't sit back and wait for it. So this is where the reality is Bowen and Albanese went for the superficial look rather than understand exactly the supply chains that underpin our country. And when you don't have those underpinned, you've got a real problem. And that's why ultimately it might feel good in the cities for a while, but what will happen is that when the shelves go dry, you'll get a real realisation that they've pulled the wrong rein.
You said a second ago, as long as this war in Iran lasts, where do you see it going, David Littleproud? And Donald Trump, if he makes a phone call and says, I need Australian troops, I want more military backup from Australia, should we say yes?
Well, I think we need to have a good hard look at that. We're obviously sending wedge tails over there to help in terms of intelligence and seeing where some of the targets, the defensive targets are. But I think what we need to do is harass, particularly around boats in protecting the Straits of Hormuz, is important. I think a land conflict, we need to see what happens with the regime. So, look, we've been with the US many times, and it's important we stay as an ally. But I think we need to get a full understanding of what they're asking for. I don't know how long this conflict will last. I mean, just to understand this: if we're hurting, just understand the United States will be. If their fuel continues to go up too, Trump's going to have domestic issues over there, and what he's also got coming at him and the Republican Party in November,
the midterms, is
what we call the midterms, exactly. And if he loses the Senate or the reps, he's a lame duck president for the balance of his 2 years, because he can't get anything through the legislators. So I think you'll find that there will be a balance here, that Trump is trying to do as much as he can, as quickly as he can. Hopefully, I mean, I even saw reports this morning that his Minister for War is saying that, well, there's probably a couple of weeks left in this. I hope there is. I hope there's also regime change, and that people of Iran are empowered with whatever mechanism to empower them to take back their country away from this tyranny of the regime that they have at the moment, because that is important. And what we don't want to do is repeat the mistakes of Iraq. We want to make sure that this isn't the will of the West. This is about empowering those in the Middle East. There's other Gulf states that live peacefully and without tyranny, and we need to empower those Iranian people to take back control through democracy or whatever regime they have, one that allows people to be free and to be part of a global community that we all get on with and understand our role in and share, particularly when you're controlling oil.
Let me just get inside your head now. I understand your answer will be purely speculative, but I'm very keen to ask your thoughts on the women's Iran soccer team. As at the recording of today's podcast, it looks like 5 have flipped and said we're going back. They were offered humanitarian visas, but including the captain now has said, no, I'm going back. What sort of pressure do you think they're under?
Yeah, I suspect a lot. I mean, they'd also have family still back in Iran. And I suspect that the regime would be leveraging their safety, make a point of this. So, this is tragic circumstances, and this is why we need to empower the people of Iran. We don't repeat the mistakes of the past in Iraq, and we don't impose our will there, but we maintain a role that ensures they understand what the rule of law is globally, and that if there isn't, there's a consequence, so these regimes don't take their course again. But, this is where I would suspect that those families have been leveraged. These are bad people. These are people that would do harm to us and to our way of life. It's important that proper process was adhered to during this. And when I say that is that, that while I have every sympathy for them, and particularly innocent Iranians, there are Iranians who are part of the regime that would want to come here and to try and cause harm. We saw that. They were part of much of the discourse we saw in Sydney and Melbourne with anti-Semitism. In fact, we had to ban the ambassador. So I think it's important we use our processes to make sure those that are staying pass our security test, but pass our values test. We shouldn't discriminate on race or religion in this country who comes here. We should discriminate on those who don't have our values and don't believe in our way of life. And I think so long as those checks are done, I would make every encouragement for those young ladies to stay, but understand the circumstance in which they're under. Obviously, some of them are probably, I would suspect, saying they've got to look after their family.
Let's get back to you and the National Party, Matt Canavan. I've spoken to Matt Canavan on this podcast and indeed on free-to-air radio when I was at the Triple M network and 2GB, and I get on fine with him. I mean, he's full of ideas and he's got lots of energy, and I hope that he can continue to talk to me. We've put the invitation out there. He didn't have his feet under the desk very long when we asked, so hopefully we'll talk to him soon. But can you lead a major party from the Senate? Because that's always been thrown at Pauline Hanson, who's gaining momentum and gaining traction. That you can't be a leader of a major party and do it from the Senate. You have to be in the House of Reps. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, that's the convention. But with the National Party, you're never going when well, I shouldn't say never, but we've never held as many seats as the Liberal Party. So the Prime Minister always has to come from the House of Representatives because that's where government is formed. So ultimately, the National Party is always part of a coalition. So the leader of the National Party, while ideally would be in the lower house, the reality is that because the highest office that the leader of the National Party can always ever be is the Deputy Prime Minister, it's not as critical as a party of government, and that's the difference. If you're a party of government, that means you're a party that has and can form government. Then you need to have someone in the House of Representatives doing that, and that's the issue. That Pauline Hanson has only got one seat in the House of Representatives that Barnaby Joyce left us for because he couldn't have a job. He believed he didn't have a job, and has gone there for no job. Apart from, I suspect, from what I've seen in the last couple of months, that he's eyeing Pauline's job already. So the reality is that to get to 76, you have to get to 76. That's an enormous effort for someone to get from 0-1 to 76. So you do need to have the alternative Prime Minister in the House of Representatives. The other parties aren't as necessary if they're not going to be Prime Minister. That's the reality. And, Matt will probably one day transition across to the House of Representatives if the opportunity arises. So, yeah. But I don't think it's as critical as it is for the Liberal Party, as it is, or the Labor Party, as it is for the National Party.
It's funny because it is actually only convention. It is only convention that you are in the House of Representatives. You want to hear a quick funny story? When I was very, very young, a panel operator at 2GB in 1978, one of my jobs was to record John Gorton comments. And can you believe it? I was 17 and I got to know John Gorton. So this is kind of stuck in my mind because he was elected Prime Minister from the Senate, but then he ran to Harold Holt's seat. And he switched across, but he actually was in the Senate. He was a senator. Yeah,
and that's right. And that's when Blackjack McEwen, Billy McMahon wanted to be Prime Minister. He was already in the House and he refused to say that the National Party would stay in coalition and give supply if McMahon became Prime Minister. And that's why he waited for Gorton, and he became Prime Minister for 40 days until such time as Gorton was elected to the lower house.
Yeah, I think Gorton was actually a front bencher under Billy Snedden. But anyway, it's interesting, isn't it? Interesting. And there I was, a 17-year-old, recording Sir John Gorton comments, and I had to record it. There you are.
Well, before my time, mate. But
not that long. Don't make me. Don't.
But that is the reality. It's a strange place in Canberra, and anything can happen. And I think we're in uncharted territory at the moment, and anything could happen.
Listen, can you and I continue to talk regularly because I love it?
Happy to. Yeah. No, happy to, mate. I'm not going anywhere. I haven't died. Still there. So as many have come forward and geez, can we still talk? I said, mate, I haven't died. I'm still around. I'm just going back and getting some energy for what I do and make sure that I can make a contribution. And if I can't, well, then I will be honest again and say, well, I'm out. But at this stage, I still have a contribution. It just wasn't leader of the Nationals.
Well, I've got to be honest. You sound like a different person.
Yeah, I am. I got to tell you, I was buggered. I literally was. I knew I was going when the party room decided they wanted to go back to the Liberals and Susan Lee was still there. I couldn't do that, but I had to stay on until Susan was beaten. Otherwise, had I gone, she would have probably still be there. So it was important. I actually got us through to a new leader, but then was honest with people and just realised that I didn't have the energy to do it. It's just sapped the life out of me the last 9 months. And so if you can't be honest with yourself as something as important as representing people and representing the country, then I don't think you should be there. So I've done what I think is the right thing by myself, my family, but more importantly, the country. And now it's time to get in and get behind Angus and Matt as far as I'm concerned. That's all I'll be doing.
David Littleproud, always good to talk. We'll talk again regularly, yes?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We got the Truckie Tuesday blues rolling down the line from the coast to the desert where the railroad shines. Australia wide, we're home.
Truckie Tuesday here on Bonafide. And Rod Hannifey once again is with us. He's in the yard at Dubbo. He's about to go to Perth. That's a big trip, Rod. What sort of preparation is underway?
Preparation's all done, thank goodness. Although I must admit, I left Melbourne on Thursday, planning to go to Wagga, and I'm into my second alphabet. Yes, no, go there, go here. Hang on, no, go here and there. No, hang on, go there and here. Hang on a minute, no, it again. So I said yesterday, if you change it again, look out. So now we're settled. Back yesterday, I've had my 24-hour break at home, sort of, and just got to fuel up and hook up, and then there's another driver. He's just getting his set ready as well.
Are you doing a double up?
No, he's got his own truck and his own trailer. He said he banged his knee, so he rang me up and he said, "Oh, I hear you're going to Perth." I said, "Yeah, so do I." Well, I banged my knee and I'm a bit crook. He said, "Do I mind if I travel with you just in case?" And I said, "No, that's fine, mate."
So how many stops between Dubbo and Perth? How long is it going to take you? And we'll get into this a little bit later on. How much fuel?
Yes, that's the thing, see. So I carry about 1,500 litres. He's about the same. Get to Port Augusta in 14 hours. We'll probably end up stopping the first night somewhere short of Port Augusta. And then the second day, who knows, maybe the border. I've got to go to Kalgoorlie with one trailer. Got to drop the second trailer, unload the first, and then move the dolly to the back and put that trailer at the front. And then we get to Northam and fuel there. So let's hope they've got plenty. You've got to drop one trailer and then go in with each individually and all that sort of fun.
It sounds like a lot of fun. And we'll talk about the availability of diesel in Australia in just a little while, a little bit later on in this chat, because it's diesel that keeps the country running. I mean, if you need your car for work, we've learnt during COVID that people can work, or some members of the working community can work from home, but truckies can't. Our groceries don't get on the shelves of the supermarkets by Zoom. So we'll talk about the fuel crisis in just a little while. But first of all, time to catch up. We'll go into our inbox if we can, Rod. We've had a voicemail from a listener.
The NHBR always target us, but I was following a vehicle the other day after the body truck incident. He obviously didn't really care that he had 4-ball drive tyres. But I was following a car down the motorway, heading out to go and do some deliveries for the next day, and the wheel was wobbling that bad. You know, I was worried about snapping the wheel studs and flying off. Like, when does the NHVR start looking at cars and some of the conditions they're in? I mean, sometimes you're driving down the highway at night time, there's no tail lights on an old ute, or, you know, they've got one headlight, or I've even seen a car that's had a full head-on collision and then drove off and kept driving like there's nothing wrong with it. You know, we seem to be the target and make the headlines, and, you know, as soon as something goes wrong, they fire the bullet straight at us, but they never have a look at any of these sort of cars that are out there on the road.
I had a brief comment about this, but I wanted to save it for you because he is a truckie. He said, what can the NHVR do? Well, the NHVR is the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, and it looks after heavy vehicles. The condition of a motor car is up to the responsibility lies on the mechanic that passes it for rego, but also that's what the police are for. The NHVR doesn't have anything to do with motor cars, does it, Rod?
No, it doesn't, mate, no. And it's up to the police to do something about that. Like years ago, you would hear people getting pulled up for only having a headlight or something like that. You don't hear it now, but geez, you see it a lot. And, of course, you know, when you've got something coming towards you and you see one light, you think, oh, well, is it a motorbike or is it a car? And most cars don't seem to have park lights now. Like, at least in the past where you had a headlight go out, you still had your park light on that side, so you knew what was coming towards you. And that seems to have changed. So it can be quite interesting. And the one I have even more trouble with is people that tow trailers that don't have lights on them and don't have clearance lights out the side, and the car goes past and then the trailer appears out of the dark and scares the living daylights out of you. So I understand his concern that we get targeted, And I think that's a problem, and I'm sure you've seen on the TV there's been a big fatigue blitz, Luke. Now, I see Paul Salvati was on the TV at one stage, and he said, look, we found 5,000 fatigue offences last year, so we're going to go and have a blitz. Now, I have two problems with that, Luke. The first one is, if they found 5,000 offences, I want to know how many of them were serious breaches and how many of them were 10 minutes over, didn't tick a box, forgot to write the date down, didn't add the hours up, all those little things that we argue that have nothing really to do with fatigue or road safety. And if they turn around and say, well, there was 2,000 serious ones, okay, so what's the problem? Let's address it as an industry. Be fair, be genuine, and tell us the truth. But if they turn around and say there's 5,000 offences and we find out that 4,200 are minor piss-ass things that have nothing to do with road safety, then how do you justify all that time and money to go out and target blokes again and pull them up and knock them off for more minor bullshit things? So I have a problem with that.
Yeah, but as I said, a mechanic that passes a car fit for rego, they could lose their licence if they pass a car that isn't fit for the road. But also it is the job of the police to put defects on cars, and you've got to stop driving it until the driver or the owner of the vehicle addresses those problems. So it's not the job of the NHVR, but I hear his point. No. Rod, we've got an email from Matt. Let me read it to you. It goes, listening to your latest Bonafide podcast, I really enjoy listening to you ever since you're on Triple M. Oh, that's nice. I just wanted to let you know that since the 1st of January this year, Western Australia has been repairing a lot of roads and highways where a lot of trucks drive, and the roads are phenomenally way better than I've ever seen them before. Looking for Rod's response.
Oh, we'll find out, I suppose. It's good to see. Again, they've been doing a lot of resurfacing. So Australia is one of the few countries in the world that uses the asphalt overlay. Virtually, you get the dirt nice and smooth. You put down a layer of virtually thin bitumen, liquid bitumen. Then you put stone on top, and they keep putting the stone on top. So we supposedly do that better than anywhere else in the world. But at the moment, they're out just overlaying with bitumen and stone, and they're going straight over the top of the failures, which will, of course, come through again. So, mate, we'll check the roads out, and I will let you know.
Yeah, and something I wanted to cover a little bit later in Truckie News, but we'll do it now because it's relevant. The state government has announced that the Great Western Highway is going to be closed for 3 months because of desperate repairs near Mount Victoria, and all traffic's to get from Penrith or Richmond through to Lithgow. You've got to take the Bells line of road, which doesn't give you a lot of overtaking opportunities. However, the parts of the road that they're talking about, a lot of the support work was made hundreds of years ago by convicts. 3 months, the Great Western Highway closed for 3 months. That's going to cause an enormous disruption, isn't it, Rod?
Mate, it certainly is. My understanding is, looking back into the history of that, there was a road below it called Berghoffers Pass that was used before the Victoria Pass was done. It's only a walking track now. Whether it could ever be reinstituted, who would know? I've got a mate that's gone right into the history of it, and he said there's actually a flat valley that comes out from Windsor, where at the end of that valley you only need a 5-kilometre tunnel to come out the other end, and we wouldn't be going up and down all these hills in the first place. But that was the thing from 30 or 40 years ago. They were aware of movement in that, and it's not a bridge, it's actually a rock wall. They were aware of movement in it in 1990. They said we're going to monitor it. They were aware of movement and further failures, where at one stage they looked into it and they said, all the dirt's gone from between the rocks. We're just going to watch that and see what happens. Well, we know what happened. Now they've closed the road, and as you say, we've got the double whammy of fuel prices, and let's not talk about fuel gouging and thieving fuel companies and people putting up prices of fuel that they'd already bought and paid for. Let's not go there. But you've got the double whammy of extra fuel prices plus a detour. Now, the Victoria Pass has always been a bottleneck for freight, Luke. You're only allowed over there in, technically, a semi, which is 19 metres long. Now, there are a few exceptions. There are what's called baby B doubles running at 20 metres under PBS. That's the biggest combination allowed over there. So we've never been allowed B doubles through there, and the idea of the tunnel that they were going to build was going to go straight from semis to A doubles, like a road train by any other name, as we've discussed in the past. That got canned, of course. They reckon they didn't have the money for that. And now that road's closed. So it's double the volume on Bells Road. And I saw some bloke sitting there yesterday not moving because of the congestion. It's not the best road. There's a very, very long, steep descent on it that, you've got to be really careful of. Some of the corners are narrow, and I see there's already been some complaint about trucks, having wheels over the centre line. Well, they have to do that so they don't run over the Armco on the other side. Yeah. And people just have to have a little bit of patience. But why is it that knowing the problem was there, that nothing's been done, everybody's fobbed it off and let it go, and now we're in a situation where they say 3 months, Luke, but it could be longer, and virtually all the people in Western New South Wales are being punished and penalised, and that's wrong.
Well, I'll tell you something. Last weekend, the Penrith Panthers had a game of NRL against the Cronulla Sharks at Carrington Park in Bathurst. Now, I can tell you that Carrington Park has a capacity of 11,500 people, and it was packed. The Panthers are almost a local team that they draw from the Bathurst Penguins. Can you imagine what the Bells line of road was like as the only way to get to Lithgow and then on to Bathurst over the weekend?
Yes, and look, I did talk to a gentleman from an ABC program, and I said, you do realise, of course, that it's not just servicing Bathurst and Orange and Dubbo. I said all the freight that comes out of Sydney to Mount Isa and Darwin comes out that road as semi-trailers. They come to Dubbo, they hook up another one as a road train, they go to Bourke, they hook up a triple. So all of that stuff is now joining that mix, is being delayed further, is costing more because of the price of fuel, and it's because people looked at it and said, we'll let that develop. So it's developed now so that we don't have a road, and that's a real problem.
You know that little... Well, it's a kind of everything business at Little Hartley. As you're heading west, it's on the left. It sells sweets, it sells hot chili, it's novelty goods. They've got no customers, and that's just one example. It's 3 months, and the Minister for Transport said, 3 months, yes, if everything goes according to plan. When did the last government project go according to plan?
Yes, that's what I say. 3 months if we're lucky, mate. It could be longer. And again, are they going to fix it properly? How are they going to do it? I don't know. Maybe we should ring the Chinese. They'd come over and build a new tunnel there in about 6 weeks, wouldn't they?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. All right. Yes, right. Some fun and games for people wanting to use the Great Western Highway over the next 3 months. I'm tipping it'll be more like 6, and that is catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic. And Kelsey, you drove the Kona to Bathurst. We went via the Bells line of road. There aren't many overtaking opportunities, but imagine the Great Western Highway shut for 3 months. Unbelievable. And how did they let it get to this? How did they let it get to this? As I said, Blaxland, Wentworth and Lawson took less time.
So, Luke, I do have a good and a bad caravan story for you.
Oh, okay. We're all listening.
Okay, so on the way to Adelaide last week,
yes,
went from Melbourne to Adelaide, driving along, and here's this caravan sort of slowing down, coming towards me. He's half off the road, so he hasn't got off the road. He's sort of sitting half on the road and half off the road, slowing down. There's a truck right up his clacker behind him.
Yeah.
And I called the truck up and I said, geez, you'd think he could have found a better spot to pull over and mess about. And he said, no. He said, it's worse than that. He said, I watched him. He sat at the exit to the parking bay till until he got there and then pulled straight out in front of me. And I locked everything up so I didn't run into him because I'm coming the other way. And then he said, as soon as he's got out and the highway started to accelerate, he's looked out the mirror, obviously, and the driver can see it as well. The door of the caravan's flapping in the breeze. So that's why he's halfway off the road trying to find somewhere to stop and shut the door. So not only was he an idiot for pulling out in front of the driver, but then he's messed him round again. Going across, I think, coming into Tintinara, wherever it was, there was another caravan there, had a wheel virtually come off. And again, honestly, the length of the caravan in front of him was a wide shoulder where he could have been safely off the road. but he's stopped half on the road with a police car there and all the traffic's got to go around him. Why he couldn't have pulled up, 10 feet further, I don't know. But then on the good side, Luke, I'm on my way home from Adelaide back to Melbourne, sorry. And I come up on this caravan. There's a car between the caravan and I, and the caravan's got a tiny little sign about 3 or 4 inches high that says 18/40. So I called up. I said, copy there, the caravan eastbound in front. Oh, yeah, mate, yep. I said, may I make a suggestion? He said, what's that? I said, mate, I can see your 1840 sign there. I said, I'm in the truck behind you, so you can see how far back I am. And I said, no one could read it from here, but I said, I know what Channel 18's about because I started it many years ago. And the lady on the radio said, oh, would that be Rod Hannifey?
Yeah.
Of course, after I stopped laughing, I said, how would you know that? Oh, we listen to the podcast all the time.
Hey.
Yeah, so well, there you go. So to Joanne and Louie, safe travels in the caravan. Thanks for doing the right thing and having the sign, but for goodness sake, get a bigger one.
Oh, we love them. They're so good.
Was that your good story or your bad story? You had two.
No, that was the good one. Yeah, it certainly took me by surprise. So.
What's the bad story?
Anyway. Oh, the bad one was the first one.
He already said it.
Okay, sorry.
In front of the truck, and yes.
I thought they were combined.
Caravanners that are listening to this, send us in your questions about travelling on the road with trucks, good or bad. We want to hear from you specifically, caravanners.
How can we all get along better? What's your suggestion?
Well, I actually feel like, Rod, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I actually feel like caravanners in general are like, most of them I feel like want to do the right thing if they're educated. Like
if they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I've heard some stories from Nathan's parents, about their caravanning adventures, and it seems like at least the group that they're in, like they all kind of want to be more educated because they respect trucks. But I know that not all caravanners are like that.
No, and to get to them is really hard. Like there is the CMCA, the Camper Van and Motorhome Club of Australia. They're the biggest group, but they represent more motorhomes than caravans. There's the Australian Caravan Club, and I've been to events with both of those groups and done seminars and things like that. But again, for me to go to all of those things, I'd have to give up my job, and of course that makes it pretty hard to feed the family and pay the bills. I get a lot of invites, but they're a very disparate group, a bit like truckies. They're all individuals. They're all alone. How do you get to them if they're not in a club? If they're in a club, they might have a newsletter, do a seminar, they go to something, I've got a chance to talk to them. But other than that, trying to get hold of them individually. And look, I've actually rang the biggest caravan manufacturer in Australia and said, I have this thing called the Caravan Survey. Maybe when you sell a caravan, you could give it out with a new caravan and they'll think you're really good people and you'll help them understand and be safer on the road. No, it's too hard. We can't be bothered. So that's really sad. I've certainly tried. And honestly, I think from, when I started many, many years ago, having Caravan Channel 18, that sort of thing has helped. Going to those seminars and, I could probably say off the top of my head I've been to 15 or 20 over the last few years with different clubs and groups, and I've always got a good reception there, Luke.
Good.
Many years ago, the first time I went to the Stone the Crows Festival, which unfortunately doesn't happen anymore, we had 300 people. Walked in and spent an hour and a half listening to me talk about sharing the road with trucks and asking questions and answering questions. And I still get feedback from them occasionally. I remember seeing you there and it was really helpful. And as you say, the majority want to do the right thing, but unless somebody calls them up and says, copy there in the caravan, man, are you aware that what you just did was the wrong thing? For example, moving over to the shoulder and slowing to 80 kilometres an hour when there's 5 trucks coming the other way, thinking the truck behind you can do a Harry Potter and just narrow up to a metre wide and scoot past at, warp speed. So, some of the time they think they're helping and they're actually making it worse. And that's the stuff that we have to target, both for their safety and ours.
Maybe we can do a special caravanning edition.
Well, let's get someone from the CMCA on.
Tuesday. Yeah, we've said that for a while. They're hard to get in contact with.
Let's do it. And also, caravanners, have the radio on the right channel.
Well, and if you're going to have a sign on the back, for goodness sake, have the thing turned on, because, yes, we've discussed major capital cities, a lot of truckies turn the thing off. But that's why Channel 18 was born, so that there was a channel for caravanners. They can chat if they're running together. And I've got to say, Luke, the one other thing that they do wrong generally is run too close together. Now, not their fault, but coming out of Dubbo, on Thursday night, Friday night, I had a old mate in his farm truck. Now, I'm sure that everybody's seen a farm truck dawdling down the highway at 85 kilometres an hour without a care in the world. He's thinking about his pigs and his sheep and whatever else he's going to do that night. And you drive past, and it's like they're in another world. You know, there's no one else on the road. They can just take their time. It's a lovely afternoon. The sun is shining. But old mate had someone with him, with another vehicle behind with a trailer, and they're stuck virtually one car length apart, so no one could pass just one of them. And, of course, in the overtaking lane, which was uphill, I struggled to catch up, and I give them a flash to say, hey, how about instead of you accelerating up to 95, let me get past? No, they said on that, so I had to overtake them after that and had to overtake them together. And, of course, I did meet that bloke that we all loved the other day too, coming up in an overtaking lane. Now, this is going to sound like I'm a real prick, Luke.
Rod, you could never be a prick.
That's right. So, again, car doing about 95. Now, I'm a third of the way from Melbourne to Adelaide. I've got a fair way to go. I've got to get in there, get to bed, and this car's doing about 95. So it makes it really difficult to overtake them in a truck which is speed limited to 100. I put my foot through the floor, and unless I'm going downhill, it won't exceed 100. So we get to the overtaking lane, and I'm out beside the car, and they've sped up that little bit. So now they're doing about 97, and I'm gaining on them, and we're coming to the end of the overtaking lane. Now, before we got to the end, they never put their indicator on. They never moved over. They just sat there beside. So I'm actually the truck. I'm in a B-double. I'm fully loaded. I'm 60 tonne. And I'm in front of the car before we get to the end of the overtaking lane.
Yeah.
And, of course, at the last minute, he suddenly goes, oh, goodness, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Now, of course, I'm not going to lock everything up because by law, this was one of the overtaking lanes where the dotted line goes right to the end.
Yeah.
Therefore, he has to cross the dotted line to come into my lane. He has to give way to the right. He has to give way to an overtaking vehicle. And at the last second, he's just gone, oh, shit, and then had to sort of nearly stop. Now, he would have abused me and said what a prick I was, but all he had to do was lift his foot off when he came into the overtaking lane and let anybody else pass, because I had a queue of cars stuck behind me as well. But I'm not going to let them go and then not get the chance to pass the bloke for the next 27 kilometres. And again, all he had to do was lift the foot. He didn't have to slow down or anything really, just lift the foot a little bit. I'd have got safely past, but no, let's sit here right till the end and then abuse the truck driver because he cut me off. And I'm sure that's what the bloke would have thought. But, mate, how do we teach people?
I don't know.
Not to be an idiot.
I don't know.
And that's the problem.
I don't know. And it doesn't just happen to trucks. It happens to us in cars too.
Oh, my God.
You're in 110 kilometres an hour. There's a car in front of you going 90.
Yeah.
You go to overtake and they speed up.
Yeah.
What annoys
and
me...
in the end, they slow down again.
What annoys me, this happened the other day. Nathan and I were in, like, really packed traffic in the city, and we need to get across a couple of lanes. And this is something that people often do in this specific area because you come out of a shopping centre onto a highway. So it's very common for people to like move over a couple of lanes so they can turn right. And this one car would just not let us in. And it is so frustrating because I never not let people in, right? Especially in an area like that. I always let people go in front of me when they put their indicator on because I've been in the position before where I need to change lanes. And I just do not understand people that care about being one space ahead. It's like you're not even that further ahead. Like just let people in when they need to be let in.
Oh, I know.
So the other thing is we need to teach people how to merge, and it should be like the zipper. It should be one from each lane, but there's always be, as you say, there's someone who, A, has got to try and push in where there isn't a gap when there's already been two cars got in. So that's, you wait your turn, and then there's someone that won't let you in. So get over it.
No, people are so rude.
What's wrong with people?
Just be nice. Just
I
be
know.
nice.
By the way, the largest, most popular caravan manufacturer in Australia is Jayco. Is that who you were referring to?
Yes.
They have 37% of the market.
Yes, I know. I have tried individual dealers. I have written to them. I have sent them the caravan survey. Never got a response back, which is a bit disheartening, as you say. They've got a very big market position. You would have thought something as simple as a little bit of education would have made them look better. Made them seem to be genuinely concerned about the people they're selling vans to.
I guess when people just buying off you anyway, why would you care? People are going to buy off them anyway.
We've got market share, bugger them. Yeah, they'll buy it anyway. So,
well, I think we need to get someone from the CMCA on, and we're trying.
Yeah.
We'll get them on as soon as we can with you. We might get Nathan's dad on too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he's got lots to say.
Oh, when we were in Tasmania, and because Steve, they transported their caravan over with their car and all that type of stuff. So I got to check it out. And they've got a UHF. And I was in their car. We were traveling back from somewhere, about 45-minute drive through the Tasmanian countryside. And I was like, Steve, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. Like, I want to see how it works. And I fully understood what you meant by people just sitting on there talking absolute shit. And it was funny
Was
because...
it 10 or 18?
Oh, we did all of them.
Yeah, right.
At one point, we just set it on scan, and so whenever it picked up a signal, it would just tune in, and then when we got too far. But we were going through a roadworks, and it was really funny because it was like all trucks. They were doing like gravel laying down or whatever. And it was so funny being able to hear them talk to the lollipop men, like as cars were going through, because you could tell that they were like, guy in the white van, really slow, mate, just cut him off after that, just talking like shit about the cars going through. It was very funny.
It's good.
It is good.
It's entertaining. It's kind of like eavesdropping.
It is. It felt like we were eavesdropping, and I kind of loved it.
Yeah. Well, I reckon we should get one on our next road trip just to listen in.
Honestly, it is fun. It is fun.
Okay. We'll get a sponsor.
Yeah.
UHF. Who manufactures UHF radios? Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's get them on as a sponsor.
GME in Australia. GME have been a sponsor of mine for many years. They've supplied me with radios. They used to make sort of car radios as well. They don't do that anymore. But GME make them in Australia, and there is another manufacturer as well. But GME are good.
Okay, we're onto it.
GME. I heard you have fantastic radios. Yes, the best in the market.
And we can help you move more.
Yeah.
Anyone out there with a product, if you have it, we'll flog it. Hey, that's a slogan.
I know, you've said that for a while.
Rod, that chat we had with Travis Sinclair, how good was it?
Yes. And due to you, mate, I missed out on the film clip and, playing me harmonica and, the triangle, and I haven't heard from Travis. You obviously scared him off. But looking forward to his new single. I see there are a couple of other young country people. Somebody sent me a link during the other day, and I'll have to have a listen to that and come back and give you a thought, and then we'll have to get them to come on and tell us what they think about trucking in Australia.
Absolutely, but because of the Travis Sinclair clip.
Well, I put a clip up on Facebook. And there was a big response. Luke, what were some comments that caught your eye?
Okay, this is from Cole. This could almost be lyrics to a song.
I don't know about that.
Okay, well, let me show you. If I get a bit doughy, which means tired, I always aim for a 45-minute nap. 15 minutes to get some sleep, 15 minutes of actual sleep, 15 minutes awake before heading off again, and find I'm right to go again.
Oh, it's like Dr. Seuss.
But you were right. Now I'm 45 minutes behind and being regulated, legislated, restricted, and there's no catching that 45 minutes up again. It's gone, but I'm still here, so there's that. Keep it safe.
Like Dr. Seuss.
It is kind of Seuss-ish. Yeah. Rod?
Yeah, mate, when he said 45 minutes, I'm thinking, of course, the power nap thing is don't have more than 20 because then you get into REM sleep and that makes it worse when you wake up, but he's got the plan. Yep, so he's on the money there. And look, again, I'm just writing a draft requirement for Rod Pillen Transport for the new HVNL2. So under the current law, we have 3 levels. We have standard hours, which is 12 hours. We have basic fatigue, which is 14 hours. And we have AFM advanced fatigue, which is 15 or 16, depending on what state you're in. And then, of course, we have the WA regs, which are completely better, again, as we've discussed in the past. So when the new law comes in, supposedly in July or something this year, we will only have 2 levels of fatigue. So we'll have standard hours. So instead of bringing the standard up to the 14, which is what everybody might have preferred, I would think, they've said, no, what you have now is BFM, where we have to do a course and be accredited, but so does my fleet controller. So the reasoning behind that is if the fleet controller says, Rod, go and do this. No, I can't do that. Why can't you do that? You should be able to. Well, they also have to do a course for BFM. But now all that's been thrown out, standard hours and anything above standard hours, we have to apply again to get accredited. The company has to apply to be accredited, and there's going to be a number of templates, which of course they can't tell us what they are yet, one of which will be sort of what we have with BFM. So why do we have to throw away something I've had for the last 20 years and go and be accredited to do exactly the same thing the next day? That's a load of crap, but that's my view. So we'll see where that ends up. But I'm writing a list that we would like a couple of minor changes, nothing serious, but just simply to make it easier for a driver, particularly, for example, here, to go to Perth and back. Last time I made it to Cobar. Now, Cobar's 3.5 hours from Dubbo. I ran out of hours at Cobar. I sat there for 24 hours. It's probably more fatiguing to sit there because, of course, you've pulled up, you've driven, then you're out of hours, so you go to sleep. Then you've got to get up, sit there, walk around all day, do shopping, look, and then try and go to bed so that you can go to work again to get home that night. And it's just a load of crap, and they don't recognise that that makes it worse. It increases your stress. It's another night, 3.5 hours. And I still had legal hours for the week and everything, but because of the logbook, I had to sit there for 24 hours. So that's just ridiculous, and we've got to get a little bit of flexibility. So all we really want.
There's a comment on that we've received from Craig about the logbook. It's not a very long comment, but it's to the point. Craig says, call it the death book for a reason. Forces you to drive tired. More fairy tales in mind than the Bible.
Yes, and of course the authorities will say nobody forces you. Well, that's crap. We've got cameras that say you can't do this and you can't do that. We have a national camera network that watches everything you do. And in the past, let's be fair, Travis said the same thing, mate. He said, I will drive when I'm fit and I will sleep when I'm tired. And he, in the past, made his logbook match, and a lot of blokes did. Now, a lot of those blokes did millions of kilometres without an accident. It was probably 10 years ago, a bloke stopped me at a truck stop. He said, mate, I have never in 20 years on the highway struggled to be safe because now with all these cameras, I have to do what they tell me to do. I have to sleep when they say go to sleep. I have to drive when they say drive, whereas in the past, I drove when I was fit and I slept when I was tired. And we're different. The days are different. The loads are different. The temperature's different. The roads, all different. But no, you do it our way because we know better. That's the problem.
Yeah. Jimmy said the load can wait. Doesn't mean you have to shonky your logbook to get the next load. If you need to shonky your logbook, that's a management problem. Can't use that as an excuse. Some days I get 3 hours down the road and have a break. Some days I do 5 hours. But it is what it is. If you have to rest, then rest. That's from Jimmy.
Yes. Now, I had a discussion. We had at that stage, the RTA came to Dubbo, and there was a pretty high-level people from the RTA. There were trucking industry people here. It was about changes to the law. And this RTA bloke came to me and he said, so what happens if, you get down the road and you haven't got enough hours? And he said, drop a trip. Now, his example, and again, the things that affect our ability to manage our fatigue and do the job safely and by the book are all out of my control, Luke. I go to a place to load, I turn up on time, the forky kicked his toe, or the machine broke down, or this bloke's paid me more to get loaded first, you sit there for 2 hours. So you sit there for 2 hours, and after 2 hours you go over and you say, what's going on, mate? Oh, yeah, look, we won't be long, but, look, we're nearly there, mate. Yep. So they sit there for another half hour. What's going on now? Oh, yeah, look, if they'd have told you at the start you were going to be there for 3.5 hours, you could have gone to bed. You could have had some sleep. You could have set yourself up. But no, they lie and they bullshit. Now, I can't control that, and yet I still have to be somewhere the next day. Now, my boss expects that. The truck's got to make money. He's got to pay for all that fuel that we're being exorbitantly ripped off for at the moment. And the RTA bloke said, well, if you don't make it, just stop. And that's fine for him. But when you stop, Luke, you don't lose an hour's pay. You lose 2 days' pay. Because if I don't get to Brisbane on Wednesday morning to unload and reload during Wednesday because of what happened the day before, and I don't get there till Thursday morning, you've missed your time slot, or we've given that load away, now you're going to sit there for another day. So I could lose half a week's pay simply because of 1 hour. And his answer was, just give up a trip. So, how many people can give up half a week's wages because they lost an hour because somebody else didn't give a shit about their time?
Yeah, lots to think about there, and we'd love your feedback. lukebonaradioguy@gmail.com, and leave us a voice message. Just follow the prompts because it's really important. Well, Rod, the big news this week is the world's fuel crisis because of the Strait of Hormuz. And today, Donald Trump is saying, well, the rest of the world has to come in and police this and escort ships through that strait, which is predominantly run by Iran, which is attacking ships. So we have a shortage. It was an extraordinary performance in Parliament by the Energy Minister, Chris Bowen, this week, who stood up in Parliament and said there was no shortage, that deliveries were on time, they're coming. It's panic buying that's causing the problem. Calm down, Australia. It's not like toilet paper during COVID. Relax. And then the next day, which I found extraordinary, he said there is a fuel crisis. We do have a shortage. And he announced that they are going to temporarily allow what's being called dirty fuel to be released for 60 days, 100 million litres. Now, I spoke to Peter Khoury from the NRMA, who explained it beautifully. The dirty fuel isn't exactly dirty. It's the same fuel we've been using for years up until a couple of years ago. And what Australia did, it tightened its environmental pollution laws so that the sulphur was then also refined further so that the petrol we use today has less sulphur than it had 2 years ago. So it's an Australian requirement. And he's going to release this higher sulphur petrol to the public, he says, for 60 days in an effort to try and boost supplies. But it's funny, isn't it? One day, nothing to see here. All the rumours are just rumour mongering from the right. The next day, there is a problem. Maybe panic buying is adding to it. I have no doubt it is. However, let's get to this. Yes. I was really, really eager to hear what they were doing about diesel. And let me explain why. And this is my opinion. Australia runs off diesel. Obviously, Rod, the trucks. Some people can work from home. It makes life really, really difficult for those people in regional Australia that need their vehicles. Really, really difficult. But some people can work from home. If you live in the cities, hopefully you've got public transport you can rely on. If it means less cars on the road because people are conserving petrol, it might encourage people to carpool, etc., etc. But let's talk about diesel. Trucks cannot get groceries to supermarkets working from home. You can't do it on Zoom. Let's take it even further. Our farmers, there are no electric ploughs or headers or sprayers or electric farm equipment. Farmers need diesel to produce our food. Let's look at our fishing industry. Those trawlers that go out and bring fish back to our shores, they don't run off electric power. They don't run off 95. They run on diesel. So, Rod, I'm really keen to hear from your point of view. Is the government looking after our supplies of diesel? Is there enough out there? You're about to launch yourself on a long trip to Perth and then get back home again. What's the government saying about the current fuel crisis and how is it addressing diesel?
Probably three things, Luke. Now, the issue of fuel capacity and storage has been raised probably over the last 5 years, and they say that we have 25 days. Now, 25 days is not enough. We don't do the manufacturing that we did. We're down to 2 plants in Australia that produce fuel. I think there's one in Brisbane still used to do it, and there was one in South Australia. I think that one's closed. I think there's one in WA now, where we had about 13 many years ago. So they've all closed down, and we understand in one reason why. They can send a crude over. It is cheaper for someone in Singapore to refine it because they're refining millions of litres daily, and we were doing a million less.
Well, we only have 2 refineries. We only have 2 refineries, yeah.
So we had more, Luke.
Yeah.
We had more, and they've closed down.
Yep.
Some of them are storing some of the fuel that we have out that capacity. But, of course, then the government said, oh, we've got a solution to this. We're going to store fuel in America. Well, that's really handy if America was, laying in the ocean just off the board, the eastern seaboard. But it's not. So storing fuel in America is probably pretty much like having a hip pocket in a submarine. It's a good idea. It just doesn't work real well. So, one, we don't have enough storage because we don't produce enough.
And also, Rod, just to point out that refined petrol, 91, 95, 98, has a relatively short shelf life. So it's unrefined oil that we need to have, and then we need to refine it.
Yes. Yes, and we need to do that here because we can't rely on storing it overseas. Yes, most of our fuel comes from Singapore. But, mate, a lot of these fuel price rises are for fuel that was bought weeks and months ago.
Yep.
The ACCC say they're going to talk to them. So what are they going to do? Say, oh, Rod, we owe you $25 because that fuel was too dear last week. We're never going to get that money back. They've let that go too late. They should have jumped on that from the start. That's my view.
Oh, but also the government, the government last week announced that fuel companies that are found to be price gouging will be fined up to $100 million. Now, is that a big enough incentive to do the right thing?
And is it too late? Because we know the gouging has already happened. So what are they going to do? Turn around and drop their prices? Well, now they can claim it's, we've had to buy more because there is a shortage, etc. So the problem, as you say, Luke, is that it's a compounding problem. Right, so now we've got Mount Victoria closed. So any truck coming out of Sydney, let's use Dubbo for an example, right? Any truck coming out of Sydney, he's now paying more for his fuel. He's also got to take a detour around Bells and spend another 4 hours in the traffic, so he's wasting more fuel to do that. So anything that comes into Dubbo is going to cost more. So then the people in Dubbo who have shops and buy things out of Sydney, they're going to charge more. So that price is going to go up. So it's a compounding problem. You mentioned the farmers. Look, I'm really concerned about idiots that have gone and bought petrol in jerry cans and taken it home. I hope they don't blow themselves or their car or their house up because they're doing something really stupid. But I'm also concerned that 2 weeks ago, Luke, we had enough fuel tankers in Australia to deliver fuel for everybody. Now, the number of fuel tankers hasn't dropped. What's happened is people have gone out and gone, shit, I better order more than I need right now because I won't have any next week. And farmers are partly responsible. They've got crop season coming up. They've got planting season coming up. As you said, the tractor won't run on air. So they thought, oh, geez, I better make sure I've got some diesel now so that I can go planting in 2 weeks. Now, they've gone hard. They've gone and said, well, I need an extra load or I need another load. You've got them storing it. And diesel is non-hazardous. It's not like taking diesel home. These people take it petrol home in jerry cans. That is dangerous. But, mate, the people that have gone out and said, well, I need all this fuel now and I need it more than anybody else. 2 weeks ago, we had enough fuel tankers and enough fuel. If people hadn't gone stupid, we'd have still had enough fuel tankers and enough fuel. And, yes, the government said there's so many boats in the terminal, there's so many boats on the water, and most of our fuel comes from Singapore and other places. So, again, I wish that people had had a little bit more sense, and maybe it wouldn't have gone stupid, but somebody started charging fuel prices when they did not pay that amount for the fuel, And that then, of course, as soon as people look at it going up, shit, I better get some more. It'll go up again. I better buy some more. So that's made it even worse.
Yeah, but let's also remember a huge consumer of diesel is our mining industry. God, help me.
Yes, and the railways, Luke.
And the railways.
The railways still use diesel.
Yes.
To power their electric motors.
Yes, exactly.
And the mining industry. Yep, everything on the mines runs on diesel.
Just for our listeners' information, just to get your head around this, Kelsey, we here in Australia consume approximately 92 million litres of diesel every 24 hours. Just get your head around that. 92 million. We've got, I think, in reserve 2.7 to 2, between 2.7 and 3 billion litres. Rod, the IEA, the International Energy Association, of which Australia is a member, says that member countries should have 90 days of refined petrol and diesel in store at any one time. We've only ever had between 30 and 35 days. Explain that.
Well, we don't comply. We are an island country, and for the government to turn around and say their solution is to store it in America, we've already discussed how sensible that might be. So, yes, we do need the capacity. Now, you can't do that overnight. It's a bit like saying, well, we should have had a tunnel through Mount Victoria, mate. That's not going to happen overnight either. So these things have been there. They've been an issue that they've been able to fob off to the next government and the next government and the next government, and now all of a sudden people have gone, oh, shit. Now, I did hear one expert say, oh, well, we've got to get more electric cars. Now, if you live in Sydney and you go to and from the shops, that might be an answer. As you said, there are no electric farm implements, and there are no, look, outside of a handful, there are no trucks that can use electric power to run from Dubbo to Perth and back. There are no facilities, there are no vehicles, there is no capacity for it, and we need diesel at least for the next number of years, and for people to say, put it on the train. Now, mate, I saw a video yesterday. The Darwin stores had about 4 mangoes left on the shelf. That's all there was because of the flooding there. The rail line is down to Perth, and that's why I'm going to Perth and every other truck driver that hasn't been there for a while. Because the water washed the rail away. So the rail can't do it if there's no bloody stone underneath the track.
No, I know. And just while you're on price gouging, this was interesting. During the week, the independent fuel group, Inland Group, made a statement. Their operating officer is a bloke called Nathan Lang, L-A-I-N-G. And Mr. Lang, we'd love to talk to you on the podcast if you're willing. But he reckons the current Bowser price right now reflects what he's paid for the fuel. No, Mr. Lang, we know that petrol stations had jumped their prices on petrol that they'd already paid for at the old price.
Yes. There is no doubt about that. They didn't buy it the day before. They bought it months in advance. And there are some companies, of course, that have, futures contracts for fuel, and they'll do really well, while others will pay more. So, again, that's business. That's how it works. It is whether you're clever, but simply hoarding fuel and buying it when you don't need it, that's exacerbated the problem. And the fuel companies have just jumped on it and said, oh, goody, goody.
Yeah. Well, we'd love your feedback.
The government's not missing out either. Like, obviously, there is GST on the fuel. So, they're getting a bit more out of it at the same time. Certainly, people have said they should cut the excise or cut the GST, whatever it might be. That doesn't solve the problem of having sufficient capacity of fuel for the needs of Australia.
And that's another topic, and I'm happy to go there. And I'd love our listeners to tell us what they think. But there's been a lot of talk about cutting the fuel excise, which is at 51 cents a litre. Just imagine that, Kelsey. Every dollar you put in your car, 50 cents, 51 cents goes to the government, which is supposed to go back to the roads.
Bull.
And electric vehicles don't pay that. It's another topic for another day. I'm happy to have that discussion. Scott Morrison back in 2022, because of the cost of living, he did reduce the fuel excise significantly. I think he reduced it to 22 cents. You remember that, Rod? So it has been done before. There was a lot of pressure on Morrison to keep it at that, but they didn't because of the billions of dollars in earnings. And so you've not only got the fuel excise, you just said it, you've got GST as well. But, you know, it's not the price that I'm talking about. It's the availability. And diesel is so, so important. Last thing, Rod, I had a conversation with my mechanic, Michael, down the road the other day because I saw on Facebook that his business was advertising for another worker. He's just got himself into a new workshop. It's bigger, it's flashier, it's shinier, and he's looking for another qualified mechanic, or he said, I'm happy to put on an apprentice and pay them really decent wages. He has had no response. He's advertised it everywhere. He said no one is interested in becoming an apprentice mechanic. And we had an interesting discussion about that. And it's not just mechanics. I mean, you ask any builder, any tradie, it's really hard to find an apprentice. Rod, so let's talk about the future of the trucking industry. This was interesting. Isuzu says that the industry is in the midst of a skill shortage, and it says it's decades in the making, and they're warning that it's now threatening productivity and fleet uptime and long-term industry sustainability. They're right. Isuzu Australia says the main issue is the after-sales workforce, particularly with heavy vehicle technicians, where demand continues to aggressively outspace supply across metropolitan and regional Australia. It is dire straits for the future of the trucking industry, and not just the trucking industry. I wonder if it's parents pushing their kids towards university. Is it kids not wanting to get their hands dirty? Is it because apprentice wages are really poor? They always have been. And back in our day, Rod, if you did an apprenticeship, you knew you got crap wages for a while, but, you know, you sort of relied on mum and dad. You lived at home. Mum and dad supported you. You curbed your spending, and you could see that there was a light at the end of the tunnel after you'd finished your apprenticeship. Rod, once again, the future of the trucking industry and the lack of young people wanting to get into it.
And the three factors that you quoted, Luke, are in each way partly responsible. Yes, people have been pushed out of trades. You know, no one wants their kids to do that anymore, and yet you can do really well as your own plumber, electrician, mechanic, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but just let me jump in. As I said to Mike, the mechanic, I said an apprenticeship is the only way where you can actually get paid, even though it may not be wages you're happy with. If you want to do medicine at Sydney Uni and you want to be a GP 5-6 years, you come out of that not earning anywhere near what you think you'll earn, and you've got a HECS debt to pay back. If you want to be a specialist, you've got another maybe 8 or 9 years, and you come out of it with a HECS debt. If you do an apprenticeship, you come out of it with a skill that's sought after, where you will earn good money. Hey, folks, when was the last time you tried to get a plumber or a sparky? Or had to get your car fixed? Don't talk to me about that. So you actually do get paid to learn a really, really important skill.
You do. And if you compare that to truck drivers, Luke, we haven't had that apprenticeship. We haven't had that skill set that people recognise. Now, again, there's two sides to it. Now that we have autos and the trucks are smoother and they've got the technology in them, yes, they are easier to drive. But people still don't want to live in a truck 6 days a week and have the average motorist try and kill them and have all those restrictions and penalties and fines that we've talked about. So not only are we struggling there, it's the rest of the logistics industry. It's the fact that, Luke, you haven't got forklift drivers to be able to get a licence at 16 yet. Come on, you're lagging there, mate. I want you to get onto the government and get that sorted tomorrow. That way we might get some kids in. We might be able to keep them in the industry by having them in the forklift and loading the trucks. Then it's the mechanics. And the mechanics, because of the electronics in the engines, has been a little bit, I suppose, a cleaner job than it was. Now you break down in the middle of the nullarbor and I need a sensor. Yeah, that's it. You know, they're not going to send somebody out. It's going to be a part that no one knows until they put a computer on what's wrong with the truck. So that's another step there. And yes, it's seen as a dirty job. But geez, mate, I know blokes that work as mechanics in the mining industry that are making enormous money because there's a $7 million dragnet or, you know, excavator or something that the mine requires on, and it's got to go and it's got to work. So, you know, there are those sorts of things where they've dragged people out of general industry. You talk to anybody that works in a mining town, they can't get an electrician or a mechanic because the mines have dragged them away because they offer them more money. So you can make good money. But if we don't have people going into those roles, then that's going to get worse and worse over time. And again, not everybody can go to uni. Now, as you say, years ago, if you didn't do well at school, and Lindsay Fox, just one example, certainly in our industry, you know, didn't do well at school, wasn't that way related, left, and look where he is now. You know, it's a multi-billion-dollar company. Now, had somebody made him go to university to do an academics degree or whatever it is, an arts degree, would that have helped him? Lynn Fox probably wouldn't exist now.
Yeah.
So we need people to use their hands. Not everybody can be a doctor, and as you say, it's a long-term recovery to get that money back. So how do you change that, Luke? How do you incentivise people? Yes, the apprenticeship scheme, get me a left-handed screwdriver that's got, you know,
the initiation, yeah.
That's the one, yeah, you know, and that was sad at times but fun at others. So we need people to do those jobs because no matter what happens in the future, and we're going to have more robots, Luke. Now, who's going to fix the robot? Somebody's got to be able to fix the robot because we spoke of the DC, the Wool DC in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Now, that operates on robotics. Now, when something fails in that electronic system, that whole system will shut down. Someone's got to fix that. So the jobs are there, the money's there. We need people to recognise we need those skills, and somebody has to do it. And we can't just get people from overseas because they don't know necessarily what our systems are. We know they don't understand our road rules, and that's a whole other argument we won't go into now. But, yeah, where do we go for the future, mate? It's a real worry.
Well, you know how I'm an ideas man?
Yep.
Okay. We get the CSIRO, who are very clever. I mean, we here in Australia, we are leaders in this sort of thing.
Hang on, Luke. Have you just heard? They're about to put off heap of staff because they've got no money.
Yeah, I have.
CSIRO.
Yeah.
That's a terrible loss. Anyway, sorry to spoil that.
And it's had its funding nearly halved. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And we invented Wi-Fi. My idea is this: we go to the CSIRO and we somehow try and get them a huge grant. And what we need to do is clone Fergo. We need more Fergos, and we get some of Fergo's DNA with his mum's permission, and we get the CSIRO and we clone Fergo from Broken Hill.
There you go, mate. Problem solved.
See, I'm an ideas man.
Mate, they'd all be friendly, they'd be affable, they'd be prepared to get in and get their hands dirty and have a go. They'd be genuine Aussie kids. That's what we need.
Rod Hannifey, how long until you, after all your stops, how long is it going to take you to get to Perth?
I'm hoping to be there Wednesday or Thursday. It depends on the delivery on the way and what hours they're open and whether I can sort of do me drop on the way and then get straight in. So Wednesday, Thursday, which means probably won't get out of there till Friday, which means another weekend away from home.
Do you come back empty, or are you picking something up there to bring it?
No, I've got a load. I've got a load to come back already.
Yeah. You never want to do...
A long way to go without one.
Yeah, it's a long way to come back empty, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Just incidentally, are you taking a road train?
Yes.
How fully laden, at capacity, what can a road train in weight tow?
Look, let's say 80 tonne. I won't.
B60, isn't it?
I've got something. B68, yeah. You know, in simple terms, I could add it all up for you and say depends on how many axles and whether you got a tri-dolly and whether you got HML. So there's all factors.
Just be a little. Just bring it back to Luke language for a second.
Yes, let's say 80 tonne.
80 tonne, Dubbo to Perth, fully at 80 tonne. How much diesel do you reckon you'll use?
Off off the top of my head, let's say it's 1.5 kilometres to the litre. I'll probably do a little bit better than that. 1.5 kilometres, and I think it's 3,600 from Dubbo, although I can't remember last time I measured it. You just go and do it. I don't measure it before I go. But, yeah, so 3,600 at 1.5 kilometres to the litre. You've got a calculator, Luke. I've got mine in my hand and it's busy.
Kelsey, get your calculator out. Stop. She's playing Tetris.
No, I'm playing chess.
Oh, jeez.
Good to see that you're on the ball.
Yeah, no, she's doing...
I didn't realise I was meant to be part of this.
She's doing her astrology. I've told you before, Kelsey.
Oh, yeah.
Stop looking at your astrology. You're off with the fairies. I don't think I can work with you anymore.
Oh, boo-boo.
But Rod, do me a favour. If you can, I would love to know both how much fiscally it costs in diesel at 80 tonne to get to Perth and back. I want to know how much. This is just one truck, folks, one road train.
No, it costs.
Give us an idea of how much diesel, both in litres and money, that's costing. I'd be really interested to know.
All right, I'll keep a record for you, but to be fair, I am going light. Now, I have a cubic load. I have a load that isn't right up on maximum weight, but it fills the trailer, and it's a piece of machinery, and I've got steel, I've got all sorts of weird stuff on there. So I won't be right up on my 80 tonne, and I'll probably do a bit better on the fuel because of that, but I will keep a record, how much over and back, Luke, and I'll let you know.
I really want to know. I think that's fascinating. Rod, safe trucking, mate, and I hope when you do get close to empty, the truck stop that you refill at has some black liquid gold under the ground for you.
Yes, me too, mate. They'll be giving it up instead of Marta Prize home soon. It'll be 100 litres of fuel will be the major prize.
Oil, that is. Black gold, Texas tea. Beverly Hillbillies, eh? Who would have thought?
Certainly was, yeah.
Certainly was. Rod, you take care, mate. Talk to you when you get back.
Safe travelling to war, mate.
Thank you so much for joining us on episode 90. And a reminder, we'll be coming to you live 5:15 this Thursday. Call up, say hello. Kelsey will publicise it on our Facebook page and anywhere else that she thinks is appropriate, probably on her OnlyFans page, I'm not sure.
Hey.
And please join us live at 5:15 this Thursday on Facebook for the very first time. It will be repeated on YouTube.
And Luke, please tell me you have a thought of the day.
Yeah, I was just thinking the other day, Kels. I grew up in a world with Steve Jobs, Johnny Cash, Bob Hope.
Yep.
Now there's no Jobs, no Cash, and no Hope.
No.
Please don't let anything happen to Kevin Bacon.
Oh, very good. Very good. Clap, 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 clap. Bye.
But